A person can commit a sin as people walk across a street. In the city, a student stands outside a building. This sin then becomes a monster as a large creature appears behind a person. A hand grasps a sword preparing for battle. A foot steps forward indicating someone is ready to confront it. This person with a sword then attacks the large monster. On Dante slashes the monster carrying out an execution. Meanwhile Park Jio counts money in his hands reaching 1401. He sits on Dehyun's back laughing and holding up 1501. Park Jio questioned Dehyun's actions to which Dehyun tearfully responded yes. Park Jio slapped Dehyun for not bringing 5101. He then kicked Dehyun for bringing only change. Dehyun cried on the ground, his face scratched. On Dante arrived sighing and calling Park Jio a brat. He looked down at Park Jio and another student commenting on their trashy behavior. Dehyun looked scared while Park Jio looked angry. Park Jio yelled on Dante's name. On Danny asked if Park Jio was playing the role of a gangster, responding to Park Jio's question about him playing a policeman. On Dante asked if Park Jio was not embarrassed in second-year high school, and Park Jio cursed at him. Park Jio punched towards On Dante, calling him a nerd. He told On Dante to go away and study. On Dante blocked Park Jio's punch with his arm. He then used Park Jio's momentum to throw him. On Dante declared that stealing money and school violence must be punished. He performed a self-defense martial art move called People's Throw on Park Jio. On Dante asked Dehyun if he was okay, and Dehyun responded to Dante. Park Jio got up and asked On Dante what he was doing. He then kicked On Dante, asking if he watched self-defense videos on YouTube. On Dante grunted in pain as Park Jio's kick landed. Park Jio sat on Dante's chest, saying he had no choice but to get him suspended. Park Jio asked On Dante if he was tired of fighting and what the point was. On Dante responded that no one else would come forward. Park Jio called it a shame and prepared to punch On Dante, telling him to die. A teacher arrived yelling at the punks for fighting so early in the morning. The teacher ordered them to follow him to the office as the school building stood nearby. The teacher hit Park Jio on the head. The teacher and educational authority continued his lesson. He performed real education by hitting Park Jio again. The teacher asked Park Jio if he thought he would not get disciplined again. Park Jio whispered to Dehyun to see him after school. Dehyun looked distressed after Park Jio's threat. The teacher sat down and sighed, calling On Dante a bastard. He asked On Dante why he always got hit if he could not fight. The teacher told On Dante that he was going to become a policeman and Park Jio was just a gangster. On Dante responded that he was not close with Dehyun but could not let someone bother others. The teacher insisted it was not On Dante's job and he could catch bad guys when he became a policeman. He put an arm around On Dante, saying Dehyun would forget about it and live well after graduation. The teacher told On Dante to become a policeman quickly and help him. He then told On Dante to pretend he did not see anything. On Dante's father, Detective On, gave him a birthday cake and wished him a happy birthday. Young On Dante excitedly asked his dad to come for the cake. Detective On said he would be back soon as there were bad guys outside, but his wife told him to contact the patrol division. Detective On stated that taking off his uniform did not mean he was not a cop. He smiled and said he could not ignore something like that. Detective On told his wife and son he would be right back and they could eat first. Young On Dante held the cake on the eve of his birthday. A newspaper headline revealed that a police officer was lynched while off-duty and On Dante looked shocked. People came to Detective On's family to offer condolences. A bandaged man said he could have died if Detective On had not helped him. The man apologized and thanked On Dante's mother and young On Dante as many people bowed behind him. Young On Dante cried, wondering what his father was trying to protect during his birthday. The bandaged man and others cried alongside him. Young On Dante clenched his fist holding a cross pendant, wondering if it was this scene his father sought. His mother hugged him as he cried. Young On Dante cried, wondering if his father risked his life for this. Adult On Dante wondered what scene his father wanted to see. On Dante walked across a crosswalk with other people. A car nearly hit him and he yelled. He yelled at the driver for going when it was not a green light. On Dante looked up at an overpass. Park Jio had his arm around Dehyun on the overpass. On Dante sighed and looked up at them. He started walking towards the overpass. On Dante shouted at Park Jio from below. Park Jio replied to On Dante, asking if he was dispatched again while Dehyun looked scared. On Dante asked Park Jio why he kept doing that to others. Park Jio closed his eyes. He said school was not fun and On Dante asked what he meant. Park Jio continued that it was boring with self-study time and that students went crazy for college entrance exams. He pointed at On Dante, saying there were bastards like him who would go to good universities. Park Jio asked why a bastard like him needed to go to school just to get low grades. He yelled that he would be enjoying his school days and asked what On Dante would do. On Dante shouted at Park Jio, calling him trash and asking if he knew his actions were bad. Park Jio grinned menacingly and said he was a minor. He added that even if On Dante called the police, Park Jio continued with a sinister smile, confident in his impunity. He grabbed Dehyun by the shoulder. Park Jio held Dehyun over the railing, asking if he would get punished for pushing him. Dante yelled that he would be punished and the law would intervene. Park Jio laughed, asking about the law in a country without the death penalty, and told him to watch the news. He said that assaults happened in schools and assailants did not get punished. Park Jio grinned and guaranteed he would never get caught. He shoved Dehyun towards the railing. Dehyun cried out on Danta's name. Dehyun looked terrified and asked for help. Dante leaped into action towards them. He grabbed Dehyun and pulled him back from Park Jio. Park Jio looked surprised as Dante fell onto the road below with Dehyun. Park Jio leaned over the railing to look down. He laughed loudly, claiming he did not touch them and was just kidding. A dark monster rose behind Park Jio on the overpass. Danta's eye glowed pink. He looked up in shock, asking what that was. Dante fell towards the road, wondering if he was seeing things because he was dying. He wondered if his father died like this and if he would have lived if he pretended not to see anything. Dante fell towards a truck on the road. This was not justice, as a bright light filled the panel. Dante fell through a dark void. A voice said that he who sacrificed himself for others was chosen. The voice continued that they were the ones managing the goodness of mankind, the seventh generation arrangement. A large armored being said Dante's sacrifice led them here. Dante looked around, asking what happened and if he did not die. He asked what kind of monster this was, and the being responded they were the absolute good and told him to catch them. The armored being told Dante to come. It told Dante who sacrificed himself for others that it was giving him two choices. Dante looked surprised, asking about choices. The being offered him to grab a rope to go to heaven or take their rib to become an executor. It explained that an executor has the power to fight sin. Dante asked if the strange thing from earlier was real. The being confirmed that monsters from sins existed in reality. The being explained that a monster called Sin descends because of sins caused by humans without guilt. It told Dante that if he chose to go to heaven, this had nothing to do with him. The being urged Dante to choose quickly, as his death was just around the corner. Dante looked determined. He recalled wanting to quickly become the highest-ranking policeman. Young Dante walked with his father, who asked if he meant chief of the National Police Agency and why not the president. Young Dante explained that if he became a big policeman, he would catch all bad guys so his father could leave work early. He said then his father could hang out with him more. His father agreed that thinking about the well-being of others was the beginning of justice. His father warned that the moment he ignored injustice, he would always be someone who got hurt. He asked young Dante if he could show his father his justice. Young Dante smiled and said, "Yes, father." Adult Dante flexed his arm, remembering. He thought about being able to see his dad again if he chose heaven. Dante thought that his father, who always gave justice to others, would definitely be in heaven. He declared his choice. The armored being said all right. It opened its mouth and said it would send Dante there. Dante's eye glowed with resolve. He thought that even if he went to heaven, it would not be right. Dante thought those monsters would go around killing people. He thought his father would not want that. Dante grabbed a glowing sword that manifested from his arm. He yelled as his eyes glowed with rainbow colors. The driver thought Dante definitely got hit by the car but was still alive and that he was innocent. Dante slashed a car in half with his sword. He stood on top of a monster that had manifested on the road. The monster looked menacing with red eyes and sharp teeth. Its eye glowed green, ready to attack. Dante slashed the monster again. He landed on the ground. Dante stood in front of the monster, protecting Dehyun and Park Jio. He looked determined to face the threat. Dante realized this was what Park Jio caused. He identified the creature as the Sin monster. Dante commented that he heard it was a monster, but this was a hell of a monster. He stated he was not mistaking it for anything else. The monster looked enraged and thought only about killing people. Park Jio grunted in pain as Dante looked at him. Dante thought it was ironic that he just saved the bastard who laughed after he fell. Dante thought it would be better if he pretended not to know. The Sin monster punched at Dante. Dante blocked the punch and black liquid burst from the monster. The monster grunted in pain from the impact. It roared and lunged with a bloody claw. Dante declared that human beings should never die unjustly, no matter how much of a bastard some of them are. He stated this was his duty as an executioner. Dante said his father was his justice. The Sin monster glared with red eyes. Dante rushed towards the monster. He grabbed the monster's weapon. Dante declared he would not die in the hands of such a monster and performed an execution move. He swung the monster around powerfully. Dante yelled, "Die!" He slammed the monster down with an axe. The monster dissolved into black liquid. Dante breathed heavily and said these sins were the ones he needed to get rid of. He looked determined to continue his fight. Dante vowed he would never lose even if there were 100 of them. He looked down at the unconscious Park Jio and Dehyun. A female voice said Dante really became an executioner as he floated above the city. She thought he refused to go to heaven and called him a fool. The voice told him he would see hell from now on and called him the last executioner. The city buildings stand under a cloudy sky. A hand holds a black plastic bag. Dante, wearing a chain earring with a cross, appears. He stands among many black trash bags, remarking on the fresh morning. He reflects on nearly dying yesterday yet still needing to attend school. He remembers passing out on the overpass unsure how he returned home. His torn school uniform confirms the previous events were not a dream. Looking thoughtful, he wonders if any other trouble awaits him. As he walks towards school, he continues to wonder who took him home. Suddenly, Dehyun runs up to him crying and calling his name. On Dante asks if Dehyun got back home safely. Dehyun apologizes for running away, explaining he was shocked and frightened. He looks down with a flushed face. He then tells Dante he heard he jumped from a truck and taught Gio a lesson. Dante looks surprised by these words. He stops Dehyun and asks if he ran away because he saw some monster. Dehyun looks confused, asking what monster Dante is talking about. Dante looks shocked by Dehyun's response. He looks back down the hallway as if perceiving something. Dante then looks at Dehyun with a worried expression. Nearby, Park Gio is on the floor apologizing, asking if it is Dante. A hand is shown on the ground next to him. Park Gio bows down to Dehyun and Dante, apologizing for sinning against them and promising not to mess with them again. His face is shown sweating and looking terrified on the ground. Other students comment on Park Gio's strange behavior, wondering if Dante finally won against him. Dante looks confused and worried by this display. A sign for the men's restroom is visible. Dante sits on a toilet seat, thinking his instinct tells him something is strange. He recalls the monster's threatening look from last night. He now feels a malice from the people around him that was unknown before last night. He finds Park Gio's overnight change strange just as Dehyun calls his name. Dehyun suggests they move to another place, but Dante says his chest is tingling. Two other students walk past the restroom door discussing earphones, with one mentioning he forgot them. One student asks if the other lost the earphones, which he denies. Dante shouts that something just came out and that it hurts. The two students look surprised as one tells the other to stand still. Dante grabs Dehyun's face and points upwards, yelling about something up there. He asks Dehyun if he really cannot see it. Dehyun asks if a cockroach came out, stating there is nothing there. Dante looks shocked and says something in response. A green bug-like creature's leg becomes visible. Dante runs, saying something is definitely wrong as Dehyun asks where he is running. Dante jumps over a railing with the green creature following close behind. He looks shocked and sweaty. He sees a locked door secured with a padlock. Dante punches the door open. He is now outside on a rooftop with the small green creature. Dante looks around at the cloudy sky. He exclaims about his superpower, stating he did not intend to break the door. A close-up shows Dante's purple eye. The green creature is shown with a glowing nail in its chest. Dante kneels near the creature, wondering if it is also a sin, and finds it cute in daylight. The creature shoots something white at Dante, who reacts with an axe. Dante stands on a ledge, thinking he cannot jump from the 4th floor despite his strength. He makes a finger gun gesture, declaring his 100-fold willpower and that he is watching. A man on a news screen states an incident occurred that could not be overlooked. Dante watches a news report about a child locked in a suitcase for lying. He thinks the crimes of this world are never ending, as the stepfather claimed it was for discipline. Dante wonders if monsters appear in places like that, just as Dehyun calls his name. Dante asks Dehyun if he is headed towards the academy. Dehyun points out that an older student is getting beaten up, and Dante looks surprised. A utility pole stands under a dark sky. Dante looks at Dehyun, who is breathing heavily. They approach their school senior, who is sitting on the ground looking beaten. Dante asks the senior if he is okay, but the senior tells him to mind his own business. The senior claims he just slipped and fell, but Dante says he knows he was beaten up. Dante suggests going to the police or hospital, but the senior angrily tells him not to interfere. The senior continues to cry as Dante stands nearby. The senior answers a call from his mom and lies about being late because he was playing with friends. A heart with a valve appears above the senior's head as he lies that his friends are all good. The senior asks his mom to deposit money for reference notes as a monster appears behind him. Dante recognizes the sin he saw earlier. A monster descends when one commits a sin without feeling guilty, while other students argue about earphones. The senior continues to lie to his mom, saying no one is messing with him. Dante wonders if this is the sin of lying. He notices that this sin is different from the previous one. The monster behind the senior is getting bigger and bigger. Dante asks Dehyun if he still cannot see the monster, but Dehyun thinks he is making an old joke. Dante tells Dehyun to take the senior and run away. He realizes his arm is glowing, but the axe is not manifesting, indicating a problem. Dante yells at everyone to get away now. He decides to use his bare hands if the axe does not come out to fight the large monster. Dante punches the monster, saying the one who hits first wins. He successfully punches the monster, sending it flying as other students run in the background. Dante thinks he hit it and made the heavyweight fly. The monster screeches as Dante stands ready. The monster begs for forgiveness, and Dante is surprised it can talk. The monster states it is a weak newborn sin and has not killed anyone. It cries and begs for mercy, saying not all sins are bad. Dante looks at the monster with a thoughtful expression. He ponders for 2 seconds, thinking there is a lot he does not know about Sin, and he might get information if he can talk to it. Dante looks shocked and bleeds from his mouth as the monster's mouth is covered in blood. The monster impales Dante with a sharp tongue-like appendage, calling it a bright red lie. Dante screams in pain as the monster screeches loudly. The monster attacks Dante again. Dante is hit and thinks about the wolf. The monster delivers multiple rapid blows to him. Dante notes that the monster is fast. He realizes he can see the trajectory of its fist. Dante prepares for self-defense. Dante dodges the monster's attacks, muttering barley barley rice. He expresses amazement at dodging and declares he is taking it all. The monster screeches that he is not too bad human as Dante continues to evade. Dante kicks the monster forcefully. He is in mid-air after the kick while the monster stumbles back. He reflects that he lost every day but has had a lot of fights. Dante trusts his experience and powerful body. He believes he can win without his axe if he keeps fighting. A mace-like weapon appears above him as he declares his will to win is 100-fold. The monster grins, saying Dante is fun and it will receive his fist. Dante punches the monster again. His hand is shown clenched and then his arm is bleeding. The monster opens its mouth wide and reveals it lied. The monster attacks Dante, sending him crashing to the ground. Dante coughs blood as the monster states he fell for it twice and humans are stupid. The monster strikes Dante with its tail. Dante is hit by the monster's powerful blow. He is sent flying backward from the impact. The monster continues its attack, calling him stupid. Dante is injured and bleeding, yelling to let go and saying damn. Dante is on the ground struggling against the monster, saying he cannot even scratch it. He wonders why his axe did not appear, thinking about the 2 students who ran away. Dante clenches his teeth, frustrated that he became an executioner to save humans. The monster calls him a hardy human and asks if he thought a mere human could win against Sin. The monster raises its fist to strike Dante, yelling die. A pink blade appears from above, striking the monster. The blade hits the monster and sends it flying against a wall, splattering blood. The monster is heavily damaged and bleeding from its back. The monster looks surprised and confused. A girl stands on a railing above as the monster states humans cannot win against Sin. Dante looks up at the girl, injured and bleeding from his mouth. The girl stands on the railing above both the monster and Dante. The girl holds a sword and asks what if they are executioners. A close-up shows the girl with red eyes and short dark hair. A girl on the railing declares humans cannot win against Sin. She looks forward, her short dark hair framing red eyes. Standing above the monster and Dante, she asks if they are executioners. Dante notices her school uniform. He warns her to run from the monster, believing it to be the sin of lying. Surprised she knows about Sin, he asks if she just mentioned executioners. The girl then holds her sword. The monster claims it is a sin but acted in self-defense. It explains a human attacked it first and feels wronged. It screams for mercy as the girl attacks. She strikes it with her sword, telling it to shut up. Dante sees the monster's arm regenerate. The girl observes its nose grows every time it lies. She prepares to cut off its nose, first using her draw sword conviction of guilt technique. The monster screams that its nose hurts. The girl performs a spinning attack on it, stating that is a lie. She continues her relentless attack. The monster falls to the ground from her strikes. The girl notes it has been a long time since she saw a nose growing, sin of lying, adding its harm level is the lowest. She prepares for a final execution blow. The monster cries out in pain. It tries to grab a pipe from the ground. The girl and the monster clash with their weapons. She continues to attack it with her sword. She delivers multiple strikes to it. She lands a powerful blow to its head. The girl jumps back as the monster reels from her attack. The monster yells at her for being a human. It threatens to kill her. The girl corrects it, saying she is not human but an executioner. She performs a vertical slash 1-year prison sentence attack. The girl slices off one of its claws. The monster screams about its nail, stating it will regenerate. The girl explains that as a newborn sin, it does not know the only method to kill a sin is to destroy its nail. She tells the monster it will now die. The monster suddenly claims it was lying and is not a sin, saying it is also human and wonders why it is afraid. The girl leaps toward it with a glowing sword. She says that is a lie. The monster is confused, saying it cannot see and it hurts. It is overwhelmed by her attack. The girl performs a 2-handed chopping attack on it. She continues with a 5-year prison sentence attack, striking it multiple times. The monster is completely engulfed by her powerful blows. Both the girl and Dante watch the final attack. The monster's core states it does not want to die, then confirms that is true before it disappears. Dante observes the girl as the monster is defeated and the surrounding area is destroyed. Amazed by her bone weapon, he asks if she is also an executioner. The girl confirms she is an executioner from the 1st Battalion of the Korean Execution Division, introducing herself as Sissana. Meanwhile, Daehyun thinks Dante was acting strange today. He recalls Dante talking about monsters and wonders if it is real. Daehyun realizes his Hyung has gone home and wonders what he should do. His eye is wide. He looks around in confusion, wondering why he came there. A man from the 8th Battalion called Big Brother appears. Big Brother oversees the area's restoration and the deployment of forgotten gas to erase memories. Sissana looks out at the city and declares her mission clear. She reports over the phone that her mission is clear. Dante asks Sissana if her name is Sissana. He thanks Sissana for helping and notes his body regenerated quickly. Sissana touches his hand, causing a flash of light. Sissana tells him not to act so friendly. Dante looks surprised by her words. Sissana warns him not to think about fighting with Sin. Dante asks what she means by that statement. Sissana explains that executioners also die if their heart is destroyed and are not immortal, then bids him goodbye. Dante frantically yells for her to wait. He reminds her she helped him and asks if fellow executioners are not supposed to help each other. Sissana clarifies she killed the Sin because it was there and he coincidentally happened to be in the same place. Dante realizes she was the one who threw him inside his house last night. Sissana confirms it was her and apologizes for breaking his window. Dante questions why she tells him not to fight Sin when she is also doing it. He looks at his hand, reflecting on his own situation. Dante clenches his fist. He declares that when he was resurrected as an executioner, he made up his mind to destroy all sins. Sissana looks at him with a surprised expression. She acknowledges that he also wants to end Sin. Sissana asks if his reason is just like that. Dante tells her to wait a minute. Sissana states she is not mistaken at all and begins to walk away. She asks if he questioned why he cannot do it. Sissana kicks Dante, telling him it is because he does not have justice. She sends him flying with her kick. Dante falls to the ground with a pained expression. Sissana stands over him, calling him an idiot who does not know what is important. She adds that the execution division is full of idiots and there is no reason to add another. Dante tries to speak, telling her to wait and listen. Sissana tells him to shut it and calls him the idiot. Dante asks why he cannot even bring out his executioner's weapon. Sissana advises him to pretend he sees nothing and live quietly. Dante's eyes show his resolve. He stands up. Dante looks confused. He questions if he truly does not have justice. Dante looks up with a shocked expression. He shouts, "Me." The city is seen at night. Dante stands outside a building and dismisses Sissana's words. He complains that she beat him up and then told him he lacks justice, questioning her right to say that. Dante acknowledges Sissana is strong as he walks away and notices a small monster. The small monster sits on the ground holding a spoon. Dante looks at the small monster near some trash cans. The small monster jumps. A man with purple hair states it is none of your business. Dante recalls Sissana's words to pretend he sees nothing and live quietly. He looks around at the numerous small monsters appearing on the street and asks how he is supposed to pretend he does not see them. Dante states he cannot go back to the time when he did not know what sin was. He remembers Sissana telling him he cannot even bring out his executioner's weapon. Dante clenches his teeth, determined to show her his will is 100-fold. He shouts justice with glowing purple eyes. Dante clenches his fist and shouts come out as spikes emerge from his arm. He looks at his hand. Dante expresses frustration that his weapon is not coming out. Several small monsters burst from the ground. Dante looks surprised. A large foot steps nearby. The man with purple hair observes Dante's expression and says a boy makes such a face when they either sinned or got beaten up. The man with purple hair walks forward. He holds a lollipop and asks Dante which one he is. Dante looks at the man. A man with purple hair states a boy makes such a face when they either sinned or got beaten up. He asks Dante which one he is. Dante looks surprised by the question. Dante replies it is neither. He then adds that since he was kicked out from the execution division, perhaps the man is not wrong. Dante asks if the man is also an executioner and says he is no longer surprised. The man confirms he is the strongest in the execution division, introducing himself as Udam. Udam laughs and mentions Sana. Now in a playground, Udam asks if Sana is old enough to tell him he has no justice. Dante asks what is so funny, expressing his frustration. Udam apologizes, explaining his excitement to return to this nation after 50 years. He adds that Sana has not changed at all, making Dante wonder if he is crazy. Udam then asks Dante if he knows what happens when one kills a sin. Dante replies that they just seem to disappear. Udam explains that while the sin monster disappears, the person who committed the sin will feel guilty. Dante realizes this explains Park Jio's torment. Dante asks again if Udam is truly an executioner, to which he repeats that he is the strongest in the execution division. Udam states that Sana also carries a wound in her heart similar to that guilt. He offers to teach Dante how to fight as an executioner for Sana and for Dante's sense of justice. Dante's eyes widen in surprise at the offer. Udam then asks if Dante and Sana will help him achieve his dream in return. Dante declares that he had already made up his mind to destroy all sins when he was resurrected as an executioner. An old man with a beard, Sana, is smiling. Sitting on her bed, Sana says she wants to destroy all the sins in this world. Her red eyes reflect her determination. She states she is dreaming shitty dreams again because of that damn boy. A laptop screen displays a level evil mission announcement for all 5th level executioners. Sana's hand clicks confirm, and she dismisses the idea of destroying all Sin as rubbish. As she gets dressed, she states that the monster called Sin will never disappear. She adds that there are more important things to do. A busy bridge is filled with traffic and a person is shouting. Two crisis negotiators try to persuade a man on the bridge to embrace a new life after his prison release. The man shouts back asking if they know how it feels to have his place disappear from society. He questions the use of his 7 years in jail for his crimes, stating his family and workplace are all gone. He threatens to die if he does not receive 10 billion won. Sana arrives at the Manhwa bridge and answers a call on her phone. The execution division headquarters is busy with many people at computer stations. A woman at the headquarters states the site is controlled by public officials, instructing them to intervene only upon the appearance of Sin. Sana holds her phone. She stands on the bridge observing the scene. Her red eyes show her serious demeanor. Another woman with green hair crouches on the bridge, commenting that the man talks too much. She adds that if he is going to jump, he should do it quickly. Addressing Sana as Sissana, she suggests they film it and sell the video for money. Sana then calls her Sarissa Sunbi. Sana tells Sarissa to stop the crap talk, asking if this is not her individual mission, and questioning her attitude for someone who only works to fill the subjugation quota. Sarissa explains she used all her money to buy 500 CDs of her Opa's album and is there to earn extra cash for their concert next week. Sana calls her pathetic. Sarissa dismisses the comment, retorting that Sana is more pathetic for not enjoying the present life and holding onto vain dreams. Sarissa tells Sana to stop chit-chatting as it is going to be a newly descended evil level. Sarissa tells Sana to quietly fasten her seatbelt as she will kill it in 1 second. Sarissa steps forward, black energy emanating from her feet, surrounded by small Sin creatures. People on the bridge complain about the situation and the former inmate. Sana observes the scene. Malice grows stronger in places where people gather. Sarissa asks Sana what is the use of killing all those small Sins since they do not even get paid for it. She adds that they are harmless until they start gathering up. Sana looks at Sarissa. Sana asks if it would not be too late if they waited for them to gather up. Sarissa dismisses her concern, saying it is not like Sin will disappear forever and that this is the headquarters. Sana holds her phone while Sarissa looks at her. A voice from the phone interrupts their bickering, telling them to get ready. The Manhwa bridge is closed to traffic as people complain about the situation. A blimp above the bridge prepares to drop a smoke grenade. The blimp releases smoke, announcing that forgotten gas will be used in 10 minutes as a follow-up measure. The bridge is covered in smoke and people react in confusion. Sana receives instructions that many eyes are watching, so she should wrap up the execution quickly. The man on the bridge is consumed by a sin of chaos, confirming its descent. Sarissa stomps her foot on the bridge. Sana and Sarissa jump towards the sin as the execution begins. Sana lands on the sin while Sarissa watches. Sana looks surprised. The sin of chaos has taken the man hostage, holding him captive. The sin's mouth is filled with sharp teeth. Sarissa tells Sana to roll over quietly and die if she is going to act arrogant like a newly born half-baked person, asking if she will push that person and die. Sarissa states she does not care what Sana does, as saving humans means nothing to her. The sin monster opens its mouth. The sin tells Sana that her friend's heart is beating too loudly. The sin unleashes a noise power attack. Sana reacts in pain, wondering if her eardrums exploded. The sin swings its arm at Sana. Sana dodges the attack and jumps back while Sarissa watches. Sarissa, with blood coming from her ear, complains that this is why Sana is 5th level. Sarissa declares she will beat the sin into a pulp and leaps towards it. Sana looks surprised and concerned. Sarissa kicks high in the air towards the sin. Executioners are just idiots who live long lives. They are idiots drunk on fighting, forgetting their missions, and eventually giving up on everything. Sarissa kicks the sin and the hostage falls from its grasp. It is a daily sight for them to see people die. Sana stands on the bridge, observing how the justice of executioners becomes dull over time. The hostage falls from the bridge towards the road below. The man continues to fall towards the traffic. Sana reaches out for the falling man, thinking about saving people's lives. Sana falls alongside the man, reaching out her hand. The man continues to fall. Dante appears and catches the falling man. He lands on a truck with the rescued man. Sana sees Dante and calls out his name in shock. Dante looks up with glowing purple eyes, confirming his presence. The rescued man lies on the truck, groaning in pain. Dante stands on the truck while Sana remains on the bridge structure near the sin. Sana tells Dante she told him not to fight with sin. Sarissa comments that she missed her kick because it is her first mission in 2 weeks. Sarissa asks who Dante is. The sin roars, but Dante tells it to shut up. Dante, with glowing eyes and blood from his mouth, asks if the sin is singing or talking. Sarissa and Sana look shocked at Dante. Dante stands ready to fight the sin. He attacks the sin with a move called board scratch. The sin is damaged and Dante declares this is the second round. Dante dodges an attack from the Sin. Sana looks surprised. Dante manifests a weapon and tells Sana she will have to hear him out this time. The damaged Sin stood before them as Dante declared this was the second round for Sana. Dante stood ready with his manifested weapon telling Sana she needed to hear him out this time. A flashback then showed Dante clenching his fist in the past. He fought a monster vowing to crush it. A large weapon plunged into the water near a bridge. Sana on top of a bus wondered about that brat. She looked forward with a serious expression. Sana questioned if Dante now knew how to use his executioner's weapon. Udam held a bubble tea thinking Dante was quite talented. Udam stated Dante was the last executioner and wondered if his talent stemmed from his teachings. He explained that Dante's heart was imprinted with Jusian's rib. Udam told Dante his body would regenerate as long as his heart was safe, allowing him to use his executioner's weapon. Dante looked at his hand, saying no matter how much strength he exerted, the weapon did not appear. Udam used an analogy about stomach aches to explain that knowing the reason helps. Dante's eyes were shown as Udam told him to think about it. Udam asked Dante how he was still there after his body was shattered in a car accident. Dante recalled Sana saying his body could regenerate. Udam confirmed Dante's body was currently like a shell. Text explained an executioner's heart is imprinted with Jusian's rib, and the energy is called the power. The power flowed out of Dante's body to prevent it from shattering. Udam asked what if Dante focused the power only on his hand. Dante looked surprised and uttered "Oh." Udam explained that balance was important and focusing too much power on one arm would shatter the body. He added that Dante would not die but his body would shatter, regenerate, and cause endless pain. Udam asked Dante if he was willing to endure all of this and fight as an executioner. Dante clenched his fist. His weapon manifested as a cross-like object on his arm. In the present, Dante carried his father on his back, admitting he still could not handle the situation. Sana then called out to him. She told him to get lost, but he replied to be quiet, feeling the same way when she had saved him. The Sin monster lunged at them from above. The Sin monster roared loudly. Sana looked surprised as the Sin monster attacked them. Her spear-like weapon was then shown in detail. Sana immediately attacked the Sin monster with it, causing a loud crash. The Sin monster was damaged and looked surprised. Sana continued to attack the Sin monster while Dante carried his father. A woman with green hair sighed, calling them fools and asking why they turned their back on the Sin. The woman asked Sana why she did not get rid of the Sin when she was a rank 5 executioner. The woman suggested that was probably why Sana was still rank 5 after all these years. Dante called out to Damon Hyung. Dante asked Udam why he told him about Sana. Udam smiled, saying Dante was a kid untainted by the executioner division. Udam added that when he saw Dante and Sana he thought they were similar. Sana shouted that a person's life was her priority. Her red eye was shown in a close-up. The green-haired woman called Sana arrogant. The woman asked Sana which battalion she was from and suggested she might also be rank 5 since she did not know her. Dante asked Sana what a battalion was and what he should answer. The green-haired woman sighed, saying Sana did not even know what to do. The woman then looked surprised and asked if Sana had just resurrected before Dante asked why Senior Sissana did not save anyone. Sissana asked if there was a rule that she had to save people. Dante said Sana sacrificed her life for someone and asked if that did not make her capable of becoming an executioner. Sissana looked at Sana and said she had righteous eyes that did not know the world well. Sissana wondered if there was one more idiot like Sana. Sissana laughed and asked how a rank 5 for 100 years like Sana dared to lecture her. Sissana asked if Sana really thought she could be a minister in the executioner division by doing these missions. Sana replied of course. Sissana said oh my, all right, then she would go save all the people on the bridge. Sissana jumped into the air saying she would kill those bastards because she would get an additional penalty anyway. Dante looked at Sana as he helped his father. Dante told Sana she was more sloppy than she looked. Sana looked shocked and asked how he could be so straightforward. Dante asked Sana if she was not pissed with what that senior said. Dante said what he wanted to say yesterday was to kill every Sin and save people. He asked Sana what was wrong with this. Sana replied that the executioner division was not as beautiful as he thought. Sana explained that they killed Sins endlessly and the fatigue made executioners forget their mission's purpose. Sana added they only killed Sins and no longer minded other people's lives and that Dante would become one of the typical fools. Dante reminded Sana that she saved someone. He also asked if she did not say something about becoming the executioner division's minister. Dante declared he did not care what happened next and he would get rid of the Sins and save people. He stated he would do both things and it was his promise to his dad. Sissana stepped on her weapon, muttering that she was losing energy because of those fools. Sissana noted there were 3 minutes until the gas dropped as she attacked. Sissana remembered that someone killed an evil-level Sin with one stroke 50 years ago and wondered if she could do that. She then dismissed it, saying it was not her concern. Sarissa attacked the Sin monster, saying that Sin would never disappear anyway. Sarissa told the monster it knew the concept of losing well and asked if it would run away with its small foot. Sarissa leaped above the Sin monster to attack it. Sarissa plunged her weapon into the Sin monster's mouth with a signal spear attack. Sarissa smiled, saying she could block its mouth when it attacked with sound. Sarissa kicked the Sin monster's head, saying she would smash it in one go. Sarissa looked shocked as the Sin monster's mouth glowed. The Sin monster unleashed a noise pollution attack. Sarissa noted the attack was similar to earlier. Sarissa was thrown back by the attack. She wondered if her ear canals popped from the direct hit. The Sin monster told Sarissa she underestimated it too much. The Sin monster added that it recognized the consistent pattern of her movements. It asked if Sarissa was aiming for its body. Sarissa was blasted by another attack. The Sin monster attacked with a boisterous 700 decibel attack, telling her to die. Sarissa was hit directly in the face by the attack as the monster laughed. Sarissa was pushed back by the attack. Sarissa was bleeding from her face and asked if the monster thought she took a rank 3 executioner lightly. Sarissa attacked the Sin monster again, focusing on the balance. Sarissa smiled with blood on her face, thanking the monster for underestimating her as it looked surprised. Sarissa prepared a phalanx attack, saying the monster did not run away while it could. Sarissa unleashed a powerful attack on the Sin monster. Sarissa's attack hit the Sin monster directly. The Sin monster was thrown back by the attack and growled. Sarissa looked at the monster, then looked surprised. Sana ran at high speed. Sarissa was shocked that a rank 5 was running at that speed, and Sana realized the Sin did not die yet. Sana asked Dante what they were going to do since she was pissed but could not go after seniors with her speed. Dante picked up Sana, saying like this. Sana was surprised, asking what, as Dante said an executioner's strength could handle one person. Sana called Dante a crazy idiot as he shouted, "Let us go, Sissana." Dante threw Sana towards the Sin monster. He performed a people's throw. Sana attacked the Sin monster with her weapon, saying if not it was 5 years in prison. Dante fell and told Sana to pull out her blade, but she asked what. Dante was shown falling as he said Sana had mentioned its weakness was the nail. Sana attacked the Sin monster, shouting die. Sana screamed in pain. Udam watched from above, saying Sana failed in team play as always. The Sin monster and Sana both crashed to the ground. The Sin monster was damaged and said it still had a lot of things to say. Sana was on the ground telling Dante she told him to pull out her blade and that she could cut it down even if he did not come. Sarissa walked past Sana and Dante, saying he was funny and that she had already destroyed the nail, so it was dead. A blimp started dropping gas. Sarissa said the gas would not affect them, but it was annoying, so they should leave. Sarissa asked Sana who she was. Dante smiled. Police and emergency responders were shown tending to Dante's father. Dante looked at Sana. Sana's eye was shown. Dante kicked Sana, saying she had asked him idiot. Dante greeted Sarissa and said he did not know about the executioner division yet as he recently got resurrected. Another Sin monster appeared above them. Text stated the mission result on March 13, 2021, and that the one that descended after it. The new Sin monster was large and multi-eyed. Its tentacles were shown. Text stated that based on assisting 2 people died on duty. Rain falls on a city street with a subway entrance. Surgical tools are laid out as the youngest rank 5 member died in the line of duty after being resurrected. A pink-haired doctor and 2 other figures stand over covered bodies in a medical room as more people were added for a brutal level mission. A hand holds a cup of mint chocolate ice cream. A man with a towel on his head shaves while talking to Sarissa, remarking that nothing has changed after 50 years. The pink-haired doctor asks what is meant by Damon taking care of everything. Sarissa and the doctor exchange insults, with the doctor asking if Sarissa is still listening to weird songs. The man with the towel on his head punches through a door, sending Sarissa flying. The pink-haired doctor holds up glowing hands, stating that 2 people were safe because of her. Her hand glows with green energy as the power blessing is rapidly used. Meanwhile, a car radio reports that low pressure has passed from the country. Detective listens to the radio report that strong and heavy rain is still expected. Amidst blood and debris, a hand and a foot are shown. The girl with red eyes and Dante look shocked at the scene. A Sin monster's tentacles then attack the girl and Dante. A large tentacle crashes onto the street, throwing both the girl and Dante. Dante cries out in pain. He lies severely injured on the ground, screaming. The girl with red eyes yells at Dante for being salty about losing an arm and a leg. She tells him to regenerate his body like he takes out his weapon. Dante is then thrown back by a massive explosion of energy from the Sin monster. He and the girl with red eyes lie injured against a wall. The multi-eyed Sin monster states that this is not its work and it is annoying. The Sin monster floats in the air. A flash of pink energy then fills the panel. The Sin monster is struck by an attack identified as accomplice's honor with the declaration that everyone can die except me. A foot steps forward with force. A spear of light called Great Spear is manifested. The Sin monster is impaled by the spear. Sarissa is shown holding the spear and asks why the small Sins are being killed. The sin monster states that nothing is gained by killing them. Sarissa states that it will be too late if they gather, and this is the result. She grinds her teeth in anger. Sarissa yells that she is quite pissed and attacks with a lookout spear. The spear hits the sin monster. The spear flies through the air towards the water, creating a large explosion. Sarissa falls through the air and curses. She states she has no place to step on as she falls towards the water. A hooded man says it is the sin of aiding a crime. He and the pink-haired doctor observe the situation, stating it is a brutal level and not something a rank 5 can handle. The pink-haired doctor says it is frustrating not to see the sin. The hooded man is addressed as 8th General as an assistant reports increasing damage. The 8th General reads a manhwa and tells someone requesting reinforcements to be silent. He wears a bird-like mask. The 8th General states this is an interesting scene while reading his manhwa. The pink-haired doctor calls to the 8th General, who replies that the situation is not as interesting as manhwas and is cliched. An illustration shows that a small sin killed by an executioner becomes a bigger sin, which is then killed by a stronger executioner. The 8th General states this pattern has never failed for over 100 years. He states that reading manhwas is more interesting than his boring work. The pink-haired doctor thinks that her superior is not normal. The hooded man asks Winston if there is one more interesting guy. The 8th General looks on. The sin monster looms over on Dante and the girl with red eyes, who tells him to get to his senses. She tells on Dante to wake up and leave before Senior Sarissa comes. On Dante lies on the ground and says it hurts. He recalls dying for the first time when the sin of lying hit him and the night he pulled out his weapon. On Dante thinks he feels like he's going to die, but he does not. A man asks on Dante if he is willing to endure all of this and fight as an executioner. On Dante is shown regenerating his leg and responds to Damon Hyung. The man tells On Dante that he will definitely become an unhappy person. On Dante thinks about what the shitty monster does to other people. A man states that one will definitely become an unhappy person. On Dante stands with a regenerated leg and says he cannot break it, thinking he cannot let it go. He and the girl with red eyes are resolved to stop it 100 times, stating they must. On Dante and the girl with red eyes stand ready to fight the large sin monster. A red bird-like creature called Great Red Bird appears. The Great Red Bird attacks the sin monster. On Dante and the girl with red eyes yell. The Great Red Bird pierces the sin monster. On Dante asks if it is Senior Sarissa, then says no. His eye is shown with sweat. A jacket lies on the ground amid smoke. A man comments that it is crazy that he pierced the monster with a jacket. The 8th General remarks about that boy. This is the former general of 6th Battalion who went missing. Udam stands shirtless holding a purple jacket while On Dante and the girl with red eyes are unconscious on the ground. On Dante and the girl with red eyes lie unconscious. Udam wonders if they died on duty and calls them reckless brats. He faces the sin monster and states they are different from the rotten executioners they have now. Udam tells them to leave this to Hyung. He creates a golden cross of light, stating he will imprison the sin. Udam unleashes a powerful golden attack on the sin monster. The sin monster is hit by the attack while On Dante and the girl with red eyes are knocked back. The golden cross of light from Udam's attack, called Tudata Reality, extends over the city. Udam stands before the sin monster asking what this is. The sin monster asks Udam why he did that and states this is not his work. Udam responds that he is an executioner. He charges up an attack called Faith. Udam's attack hits the sin monster. He laughs as his power engulfs the monster. The golden cross of light shines brightly in the sky. News reports state that the man who caused a disturbance on the Manhwa bridge came down after the police confronted him. Traffic control was lifted, and an executioner personnel card for Sissana is shown. Sarissa holds a folder and says that the body will always regenerate as long as the heart is alright. Sarissa asks Sissana if she is doing too much. Sissana replies it is because other bastards are not doing their work properly. Sarissa tells Sissana she is funny and does not think she will be a minister. Sarissa says they need to kill 60 billion sins to pass and asks if that is even possible. Sissana replies of course, stating if she becomes a minister she will let Sarissa do all the work. Sarissa exclaims that Sissana is unlucky. Sarissa tells Sissana she is still weak and might really die someday if she keeps pushing herself. She suggests it is better to have someone strong by her side. Sissana asks if judging people recklessly is a bad habit of Sarissa's. Sissana sits alone in the room. On Dante's eye is shown. Udam asks On Dante how it feels to die on duty for the first time. On Dante asks about dying on duty. Udam explains that it is the term used by executioners when the body cannot regenerate anymore. Udam tells On Dante that he and Sana almost died this time, and it was a relief his heart was safe. On Dante asks if anyone else got hurt. Udam gives a thumbs up saying no one at all and that On Dante was excellent. On Dante lies on the bed and says no. He states that if he and Sana were not there he could have already died and he is only good at talking. Udam asks if it was scary. Andante replies he is frustrated. He states that until now there was no sin monster in his daily life because the executioners kept it a secret. Andante hopes others will stay like that, living a normal life without knowing about the monsters. He cries and says he wants to be stronger for that. Damon smiles. The pink-haired doctor asks what Damon and Andante are being so lively for. Damon tells Andante that the pink-haired doctor restored his body with her power. The pink-haired doctor is introduced as Ms. Aspirin from the 5th Battalion and tells Andante to call her older sister. Aspirin threatens to kill Andante if he calls her a kid or even thinks about it. Andante, surprised, calls her older sister. Andante greets Sissana happily, noting she is safe. Sissana asks if Damon is the former 6th Battalion general and complains he ignored her again. Sissana tells Damon he received an order from headquarters. Aspirin asks Andante if his body is okay, and he replies he is alright thanks to her. Aspirin is annoyed that Andante was resurrected 2 days ago and just recovered from dying. Aspirin expresses frustration about Andante as a doctor, but then says whatever. Andante asks if he does some running. Damon explains it is an order from the first general and is not about fighting a sin. Sissana and Andante look shocked as Damon states they will die for real if they fail. Aspirin points and states their first mission is feet run across a floor, creating a small splash. The runners' sneakers transition to bare feet as they move onto train tracks. Damon, Andante, and Sissana run together through a tunnel where Damon mentions North Korean spies with heavy armor. Andante questions if that is possible and if Sana witnessed it, but she replies she was in the Middle East. He then asks if he will be exempt from military service as an executioner. Damon replies that he does not know. Damon tells Andante he is the only executioner from the 21st century. Andante reacts with a shocked what? Meanwhile, a red cross symbol is displayed on a wall elsewhere. A man in a white uniform asks about the probability of the last executioner arriving alive. The man in uniform moves a chess piece on a board. He addresses the first general who sits opposite him at the chessboard. The first general replies the probability is as much as the man winning chess against him. Back in the tunnel, Aspirin calls out to the group saying, "Kid." Aspirin points and states their first mission is to successfully arrive at the headquarters. Sissana and Andante look surprised by this announcement. Andante asks if that is too easy a mission. Sissana tells him the execution division said this is a course. Damon points out the group is currently in the Songjiang Station underground shelter with Sarissa also present. Aspirin explains the headquarters entrance is on the underground track between Siadimun and Gwanghwamun stations. A map shows the subway track from Songjiang to Siadimun would take at least 30 minutes. Andante asks what happens then, and Aspirin points, stating there is only one condition. Aspirin instructs them not to let the train driver notice them and to keep their distance while running on the track. She adds they must arrive at the headquarters as Andante and Sissana begin running on the tracks. Andante complains this is just a test and questions why he must do it when Sarissa skipped it. The first general asks the man in uniform if he thinks it is a harsh condition. The man in uniform replies no. He states the last executioner faced defeat twice against Sin and asks if the general intends to make him prove his worth. The first general replies he has no interest in that. He explains there is a more important reason for the challenge. The man in uniform looks at him questioningly. Someone shouts encouragement to Dante and Sana as a train passes by them. Damon cheers that even humans can run at 10 kilometers per hour, so superhumans can certainly do this. Andante looks tired and calls Damon's name. He notices Damon is not even breaking a sweat. Andante exclaims about the mission. He shouts about this wacky mission while running from an oncoming train with Sissana. Damon reminds them not to let anyone see them. Damon runs on the tracks with a train heading directly toward him. He demonstrates keeping distance by landing his foot precisely on the track. A red streak of energy indicates something is arriving at the station. Andante asks how they are supposed to do that while running with Sissana. Sissana calls him an idiot and says that is power. She explains that for Damon it is as easy as breathing to bring out his power from inside his body. Sissana tells Andante to pay attention to his legs and he asks if it is about balance. Andante asks if she is boasting about what she learned from Damon and she asks when she ever boasted. Andante lands his bare foot on the tracks saying okay. He uses public stealth and power output while running on the tracks. He cries out in pain as his feet begin to bleed. Damon remarks that it is not too bad, but Andante still has a long way to go. Damon tells them he will not help this time. He reminds Andante about his experience when the truck hit him. Damon asks if Dante will be the first person to compare the destructive power of trucks and trains from first-hand experience. Andante thinks Damon is serious, and Sissana tells him to get up because the train is coming. Andante runs past an exit sign. He thinks his body has surpassed humans even without using his power, wondering if he can truly run 60 kilometers per hour. Andante coughs up blood. He thinks his lungs have burst because no air is reaching them and wonders if they will be restored again. He thinks Sissana seemed weak, but this level of exertion is basic for them. Andante coughs up more blood and wonders how long he has to run. He thinks his heart has burst too as blood splatters. He lies on the tracks and questions if his heart is affected. Dante coughs up blood and cries out in pain. Udamon observes that Dante's restoration ability has significantly dropped. Dante thinks he has received a lot of damage to his heart and his body is not moving. He remembers that executioners will die if their heart bursts and thinks no. A train approaches rapidly. Udamon tells Dante to get up as the train is coming. Sissana shouts that Dante is really going to die and he thinks his last moment would be fighting Sin, but he is mistaken. The train rushes past. Sissana screams Dante's name as he lies on the tracks. Dante's face is shown bleeding and tearful. The man in uniform considers the first general's important reason. He then turns to the first general expressing doubt. He asks if Udamon, the strongest of the execution division, would truly leave Dante to die. The first general replies that Udamon is a capable guardian and a thoroughly rational person. The man in uniform wonders why Udamon appeared now after 50 years. He also wonders why Udamon is sticking around the last executioner with Sana. The first general thinks Udamon must have some purpose for this. The first general's foot is shown as he considers Udamon's purpose. The first general tells the man in uniform that Udamon will mercilessly discard anyone who does not meet his standards. Udamon looks at Dante on the tracks and calls him a disappointment. Udamon says he asked Dante to help achieve his dream because he is strong but did not know he would fall apart easily. Udamon asks if Dante lacks strength because he is not fighting Sin or saving anyone. Dante calls out Hyung and Udamon asks which has a higher probability of surviving, being hit by a train or bursting your heart open. Dante remains on the ground. He thinks his heart is bursting open. He thinks he will never die if he can keep his heart safe. He believes if his heart is working, he can restore any part of his body. Dante pushes himself up from the ground thinking that means. Sissana looks surprised as Dante screams. Dante shouts output and states he is breaking the balance. Red energy bursts from Dante as Udamon stands nearby. An image of a glowing heart with golden lines appears. Sissana reacts in shock, calling Dante an idiot. Dante stands up amidst smoke and thinks he can still run if he has his legs. Udamon smiles at his resolve. Udamon kicks Dante and Sissana, calling it an overreaction. Dante, Udamon and Sissana react as a train rushes past. Udamon kicks Dante and Sissana away from the train's path. Udamon then says to be honest. He announces they are already at the headquarters, leaving Dante confused. Udamon asks Dante how hard he pushed himself. He explains this is the space between Seodimun and Gwangwamun Station and the entrance to the Execution Division headquarters. Udamon laughs and says he was about to kick Dante's, but if he did not get up, making Dante laugh too. Sissana says executioners should not break down pathetically exhausted. Dante calls her an idiot and asks if she also did not know they were already there. Udamon tells them it is not the end yet and the last gateway is still left. He gestures to a large door and tells Dante to try opening it. Udamon explains Dante cannot open it with just superhuman strength and needs to concentrate all his power in his hands. He smiles and says Dante will need his arms for this one. Dante cries that this is a never-ending uphill task. A woman in a white uniform opens a small door next to the large one. Sissana and Dante look surprised while Udamon smiles. The woman tells them she has been looking for them and to come in quickly. Udamon kicks Dante into the doorway, saying it is just the exhaust pipe of forgetful gas. Dante shouts Hyung. Dante asks how long Udamon will joke around and says he almost had brain failure. Sissana tells Dante to stop being childish first. Udamon explains this is the headquarters of the executioners who have been fighting Sin for 2,000 years. Dante tells Sissana she is a special case, but she states she will be one of the leaders and he should pay his respect. Aspirin says there are only 144 executioners even after a long time. She explains the rest are normal public officials who assist the executioners. Aspirin asks Dante his name and he replies Dan as in firm and T as in big. Aspirin says he is famous among the assistants as the last executioner and that they are the youngest among the executioners. Dante points out Sissana is a hoobie in his school. Sissana looks smug while Dante looks confused. Aspirin announces they have arrived and all the officers from each battalion have gathered inside. Dante wonders how something so endless exists underground in Seoul City. Udamon tells Dante not to be nervous because it is just a basic formal interview called by the first general. Aspirin thinks the former 6th General Udamon will probably be the problem. The first general says he sees they are not late. He addresses the last executioner as Dante and Sissana stand before a group of seated individuals. Dante looks shocked by the sight. Various people are seated in the large room. More individuals are shown with intense expressions. Several more unique characters are displayed. Sarissa and other individuals are shown among the gathered. The first general introduces himself as Eden, the 1st Battalion Knights Templar General. Dante looks nervous. Ondanti introduces himself and states he arrived on time after finishing the test. Eden questions the word test and tells Ondanti he is mistaken. Eden states Ondanti seems to think of the execution division as laughable. Eden asks Ondanti if he really thought being made to come by the underground track was just for a test. Sissana, Ondanti, and Udam look surprised by Eden's words. The narration describes acts done without conscience or morals. It continues by defining acts that disobey God's commandments and the monsters that humans made. This grim reality sets the scene at the headquarters of the Execution Division in the Republic of South Korea. There Eden addresses Ondanti and Sissana, mentioning he made them come via the underground track. He then asks Ondanti if he truly believed this was merely for a test. Ondanti, looking surprised, questions why they were summoned. Eden explains he summoned them all of a sudden because. Ondanti maintains a confused expression. A tear begins to form in Ondanti's purple eye. Eden then reveals that 5 p.m. is their usual time to get off work. Both Ondanti and Sissana appear surprised by this mention of leaving work. Ondanti quickly realizes Eden's sole concern was to leave on time. Eden declares that leaving on time is the greatest privilege of public officials, a right a greenhorn like Ondanti cannot take away. He announces they only have 30 minutes left and must deal with the situation quickly. Eden calls out to Rashid, the 1st Battalion commander's direct assistant. Rashid reports that Ondanti executed the sin of attempted murder 2 days ago after his resurrection. He adds that Sissana was present at the scene but failed to report it. Rashid then asks Sissana why she did not report the incident. Sissana replies that Ondanti looked weak to her at the time. She continues that she thought he would be of no help to the Execution Division, a thought Eden questions. Sissana confirms her initial thought, but states the results she witnessed in the past 2 days changed her mind. A woman with long green hair is seen in a flashback telling Sissana she judges people too easily. The flashback continues with Sissana admitting Ondanti is weak, but possesses a strong will to save people. Sissana notes this is contrary to many who are physically strong. The Execution Division members observe her with various reactions. Sissana admits she made the wrong judgment and is prepared to receive any punishment. Ondanti looks at Sissana with a surprised and grateful expression. Eden comments that Sissana's way of thinking is different as expected from the disciple of the turncoat Gideon. Ondanti questions if turncoat implies a betrayer among the executioners, but then dismisses the thought. Eden states it is not even worth dealing with and questions the point of lessening their executioners' headcount. Ondanti looks at the Execution Division members, thinking about how strange they are. He then considers how different this is from what he imagined the Execution Division would be like. Ondanti appears shocked and overwhelmed by the situation. Rashid urges them to quicken things since it is almost time to leave, referring to the Execution Division as a secure income source. Rashid addresses Ondanti as the last executioner. He explains that Ondanti has no choice but to be subordinated to the Execution Division under their minister's direction. Rashid asks Ondanti if he understands the situation. Ondanti shouts yes, declaring it is exactly what he wanted. He proclaims he will destroy every sin in the world. He adds that he will without a doubt save everyone. The Execution Division members are seated while Ondanti and Sissana stand before them. Eden tells Sissana he now understands why she did not report Ondanti. Eden states Ondanti's way of thinking is very similar to the turncoat Gideon. Ondanti asks how he is different from Eden, while Sissana admits she does not know who Gideon is. Ondanti questions if the Execution Division is meant to protect people from monsters, and if so, they must eventually destroy all sins. Cleaver shouts that is enough talking. He asks if this is some kind of cover letter presentation. Cleaver, introduced as the 7th Battalion Butcher's second-tier, questions Ondanti's strength to think he will rid the world of all sins. Cleaver asks if they have been playing around all this time given that sins are still present. Udam tells Cleaver that it has only been 2 days since Ondanti resurrected. Udam praises Ondanti for having such a cool dream as a newbie and asks how reliable he is. Cleaver warns Udam not to get his hopes too high. Cleaver asks Udam if he truly thinks all the generals gathered just to meet a newbie like Ondanti. Cleaver questions Udam about giving up his position as the 6th general 50 years ago and demands an explanation. Udam looks angry as Cleaver continues to speak about betraying them like Gideon. Cleaver mocks Udam about an incident 300 years ago where someone peed their pants on their first mission. Udam clenches his fist in anger. Udam unleashes a powerful blue energy attack called Slaughter towards Cleaver. Cleaver jumps to dodge the incoming attack. Cleaver follows up with a red energy kick aimed at Udam. Ondanti and Sissana react to the fighting while Rashid questions if it was a power offset. Cleaver screams in anger, telling the generals not to stop him even if he is a second tier. Cleaver declares he will rewrite his history of pissing his pants today as he leaps to attack Udam. Other executioners comment that nobody would have known about Cleaver's past if he had not brought it up. Udam dodges Cleaver's punch and tells him not to be so clingy. Udam kicks Cleaver, warning him he will get hurt. Cleaver is sent flying by Udam's kick. Cleaver is shown bleeding from his mouth with green energy in his eyes. Udam asks Cleaver if the 7th Battalion was not all fighting and no talk. Udam and Cleaver continue to exchange powerful blows and energy attacks. Dante and Sissana watch the intense fight, and Dante asks why they are fighting. Dante questions why the executioners are fighting among themselves over peeing and declares he will ban fighting and peeing once he becomes minister. A foot stomps down with green energy radiating from it. A large figure tells Dante that he said something really interesting. Dante looks up in surprise at the towering figure. Rashid observes the scene intently. The figure is introduced as Valdemar, the 3rd Battalion's spine-breaker general. Valdemar questions Dante about his claim of destroying all sins. She asks Dante if he is saying he can do something no one has done in 2,000 years. Dante confidently affirms he will do whatever it takes. Valdemar states she hates people who are all talk and no work and those without tenacity. Valdemar clenches her fist, declaring she will adjust her power to level 3 extreme evil. Valdemar promises to support Dante with all her 3rd Battalion's power if he can take one hit. Valdemar stares at Dante, saying she will see if he is worthy of his absurd dream. Eden comments that he would have taken the offer and notes there are still 20 minutes left. Valdemar tells Dante to show her his resolve with one hit. Sissana tries to intervene, but Dante tells her it is fine. Dante exhales smoke and faces Valdemar directly. Dante clenches his fists and declares he will prove his 100-fold will. Dante yells for Valdemar to come at him. Udam and Cleaver continue their intense fight with energy attacks. Udam tells Cleaver to stop and not go too wild, but Cleaver replies he does not care as other battalions will clean up the mess. Cleaver questions if Udam forgot he is no longer a general and brought a Gideon lookalike. Udam and Cleaver clash fists with powerful energy. Udam unleashes a chop attack and asks Cleaver what he is plotting. Udam looks determined, surrounded by purple energy. An orange energy blast hits a wall in a control room. The blast causes an explosion and knocks down several people in the control room. A foot lands firmly on the ground, causing a shockwave. A character tells Udam to get up quickly as the control room is damaged. Udam kicks Cleaver and states he knows Cleaver will not go down easily. Udam punches Cleaver and tells him to think of the normal human workers. Cleaver punches Udam back, telling him to shut up for someone who left his position for 50 years to play. Cleaver unleashes multiple energy attacks and claims he is the one doing most of the sin killings in their troops. Cleaver adds that they can always replace human workers and he has already saved enough of them. Udam tells Cleaver that he knows it is impossible to save every human being. Udam grabs Cleaver's face and reminds him that they have already failed to destroy sins altogether. Udam states that Cleaver has gotten weak and had a good chance even when he was peeing himself. A woman with pink hair and a blue cap looks on, stating she has clearly seen the answer with her own eyes. She believes the answer lies in destroying the monsters known as sin altogether. She reveals that her past 50 years were dedicated to this very goal. Udam grabs Cleaver's face and says Cleaver thinks he is the best out of all. Udam tells Cleaver he does not believe people who run away leaving their subordinates behind. Cleaver asks if the Gideon copycat boy is more special than the subordinates Udam left behind. Udam replies that they are not different at all. Udam states that Dante is also just an average executioner. The narration states the endless life of an executioner is hell itself when sins do not disappear but people around them do. The narration concludes that Dante will never be able to endure it. Various execution division members look on with serious expressions. Sissana looks at Dante in shock with her red eyes. Dante screams in agony as he is covered in blood and surrounded by smoke. One hit. Valdemar tells Dante to show his resolve. Dante declares he will prove his 100-fold will. Dante stands opposite Valdemar while Sissana observes in the background. Dante questions why nothing is happening as vapor rises from his neck. Valdemar delivers one blow to Dante. Dante screams that his guts seem to be pouring out from his mouth as he bleeds. He forces himself to endure the pain as the ground beneath his foot cracks with energy. Dante lies on the ground amidst debris and fire, thinking it was just one hit. He struggles in agony while Valdemar states he does not need power support from the 3rd Battalion. A memory shows a man asking if he will help achieve his dream. Dante is on the ground glowing with a pink aura with an internal warning to stop. A memory shows Sissana telling him he will eventually become one of the common fools in the execution division. Dante thinks to judge him whatever way they like as he bleeds and struggles with a chain around his neck. He experiences a vision asking how strong he is to think he can get rid of all sins. Dante thinks he only needs to show his true will to those who only work for money. An ability bursts from his back and he screams in anguish. Dante stands up to face Valdemar, outputting max HP. He collapses to the ground, bleeding from his mouth as a broken sword floats above him. Valdemar stands alone in the damaged room, noting it is too far. Valdemar stands in the heavily damaged room looking at Dante lying on the ground with Sissana observing. Valdemar appears serious while other execution division members including Sarissa, Eden and Rashid look on. Sissana looks at Andante in shock with her red eyes. Andante screams in agony as he is covered in blood and surrounded by smoke. He lies on the ground bleeding from his mouth with smoke rising from his body. Andante remains on the ground bleeding and surrounded by smoke. Valdemar and Sissana look down at Andante lying amidst the rubble. Valdemar takes a step forward. Andante's bloodied face and purple eyes are visible as he lies injured. Valdemar looks up with a serious expression. Andante's bloodied purple eye is visible. Valdemar thinks it is still not the time. Valdemar walks away stating it is not yet time while Andante remains on the ground and a young man in an orange jacket appears. The young man in orange asks Valdemar if that was not too cruel, stating that guts are the most important thing for their 3rd battalion. Valdemar dismisses the young man's thought that Andante has a good chance. She explains that Andante's biggest misunderstanding is thinking that sin is the biggest threat to mankind. Images show many small sins lingering around which are only a threat when they unite. Valdemar agrees that newborn sins are not that much of a threat. She tells the young man that unlike in the past, they now have the infrastructure to execute sins as soon as they are formed. Valdemar states that this is the reality. A 3rd general reports to Valdemar that a level 2 brutal sin has been cited in Hinam. Valdemar instructs him to tell the executioner who cited it to kill it. Valdemar and the young man are at headquarters observing a monitor displaying Cleaver on a call. Cleaver explains that he felt a strong evil spirit and arrived at the location after reporting it. He questions why the evil spirit is not there. Cleaver wonders if he felt the energy wrong because there is not a single trace of it. Valdemar questions how an executioner could be mistaken about feeling an evil spirit. Aspirin laughs to himself. Aspirin stands on a large blue monster calling newborn sins seriously ugly and stupid. The monster roars that it will kill him and Aspirin mockingly asks if it means him or itself. Aspirin places his hand on the monster's head as it screams to kill him, and a dark energy bursts from it. The monster is transformed into an evil spirit marionette by Aspirin. Aspirin laughs as the monster continues to scream that it will definitely kill him. Aspirin states he took the monster because it looked useful and was not too bad despite being ugly. He asks the monster if it is a sin of abuse. The monster responds that it likes him. Aspirin replies that he hates ugly things like it at the same time. He says okay and steps on the monster's head. Aspirin commands the monster to become his nails. He maniacally commands the monster to love him. The monster threatens to kill Aspirin and says it will find more interesting people to kill instead of playing with puny humans. Andante lies on the ground, seemingly unconscious as his name is called. Andante is startled awake. A doctor from the 5th Battalion with long gray hair and a stitched smile appears. Andante asks if she is a clown and the doctor introduces herself as being from the 5th Battalion while Sissana watches. The doctor tells Andante it is pathetic that he almost died twice at work in a day. Eden remarks that Andante wasted 10 minutes of their time. Andante reacts with a look of dismay, realizing the 3rd general also seemed to have no use for him now. He sits on the floor thinking he could not endure it. A woman with an eye patch calls Andante a shit-talking brat, and Cleaver states the situation is boring and questions why Damon brought a boy like him. Cleaver asks why the 1st Battalion does not take this boring boy. Cleaver points at Eden saying the boy's weapon is an axe and Eden's battalion is famous for collecting weapons. Eden tells Cleaver to shut up. Andante and Sissana stand up and Eden says having a traitor's disciple in his battalion is enough of a shame. The Eyepatch Woman and Rashid say the 4th Battalion is also not accepting childish people like Andante. Sarissa and another man agree with the 4th General, stating Andante has no talent in core injection, so the 2nd Battalion will pass. Eden looks at Andante and calls him the last executioner. He asks Andante if he now sees reality. Various execution division members look down at Andante, telling him they do not need him. Andante looks up with a determined expression. Sarissa explains that the minister's policy requires all executioners to wear a leash. This is because of a promise with the Korean government to keep the existence of monsters called sin under wraps. Sarissa asks Dante if his dream is to destroy sin and save humans. Dante affirms his dream and asks why. He questions why stronger people like them are not making saving human beings their priority. Sarissa asks what Dante wants to do after achieving that dream. Dante looks surprised and asks what. Sarissa states that even if all sins disappear, she does not think murders will disappear. She asks if they are to use their given weapons to execute humans after that. Dante reacts with a shocked expression. A decorative image asks how long this war has been going on. Sarissa explains that executioners are people living with that aftermath. She questions Dante's concepts of will, effort, and tenacity. Sarissa states that for the reality where sins do not just disappear, the execution division's duty is to maintain the status quo. She tells Dante that he also can do nothing about it in the end. Dante wonders if he cannot show his sincerity with just words. Rashid states that the attending representatives of each battalion have no intention of recruiting Dante. She suggests that the non-attendees, the 5th and 6th battalions, can discuss it. Rashad firmly says no. She refers to Dante as crybaby Dante and Sissana as Gideon's disciple Sissana. A foot lands forcefully on the ground. Damon appears standing over a fallen opponent declaring they are his. Dante exclaims Damon Hyung's name in surprise, while Rashad comments that a second tier cannot stand against Damon. Sarissa announces the arrival of the meeting's guest of honor, the former 6th General Damon. Eden challenges Damon, who responds by asking if anyone present is stronger than him. Damon walks past the fallen figures as the other generals look on. Eden questions Damon's childish provocation. Cleaver asks if Damon wants to be dissected after stepping down from his general's seat. Sarissa asks the former 6th general what he wants to say. Damon remarks that 2,000 years is a long time. He states that since sin will never disappear, it does not matter if more people die, and he understands why they have become sluggards. Damon and Eden confront each other. Damon stands over on Dante and Sissana, stating there is only one way to end this. He asks what if he has found a way to get rid of sin altogether from this world, surprising on Dante, Sissana, and Eden. An outdoor cityscape with tall buildings is now visible. A monster is kicked by a person's foot. A weapon manifests on an arm. 3 days later on, Dante and Sissana are in school uniforms poised for battle. Sissana reports her Tier 5 status to headquarters. She confirms they are chasing the sin of theft across the rooftops. As she runs across a building, Sissana states that execution will begin immediately. A female operator at headquarters expresses surprise at her skill against a level 1 sin. Above the buildings, the sky is visible. On a rooftop below, the monster's hand is visible alongside the feet of Dante and Sissana. The female operator wonders if Sissana is aiming for the minister's position. Dante and Sissana face the large monster on the rooftop. Dante's arm manifests a weapon, and he declares this is their first mission after 3 days. He kneels with his weapon while Sissana stands behind him. Sissana's red eye is visible. Sissana kicks Dante, asking why his face looks more stupid now, and he protests. Dante declares his will is 500 times stronger today. The monster slaps Dante. Dante lies on the ground as Sissana tells him 50 more times will not help and asks him to be more encouraging. The monster laughs, identifying them as 2 nimble-footed humans. It states it will take their lives. Sissana jumps to attack the monster as it threatens to kill her. Dante dodges an attack from the monster. The monster continues its attack against Dante. Sissana kicks the monster, telling Dante to stop taking hits. She states level 1 sins learn fast and asks Dante if he has not learned. Dante blocks a monster's punch with his weapon, saying he already knows. He thinks about breaking the nail with his execution weapon. Dante holds the monster's hand and asks what will happen. Sissana kicks the monster again, demanding an answer from Dante. Sissana slashes the monster with her weapon. The monster's tail whips around. The monster snatches Dante with its tail, causing him to fall. The monster, identified as burglary, slams Dante to the ground. Sissana attacks the monster while Dante is down. Sissana tells Dante to get a hold of himself as he appears injured. Dante spits blood and curses. He thinks the injury is nothing compared to the 3rd General's blow and wonders why Damon Hyung picked him. In a different moment, Sissana is shown in a traditional outfit with bunny ears eating. In another location, a character lies on the floor as someone mentions a way to destroy sin. Eden calls the idea unoriginal, while the man with purple hair says a masked pervert can judge it. A hand makes a snapping gesture. The man with purple hair asks for the 10th Battalion Department and its general's position. Eden asks if they are playing with numbers and for what reason. Damon smiles and states his plan is for the upcoming war. Damon puts his arms around Dante and Sissana, saying he will make them prove their worth and tells someone to just nod their heavy head. Damon asks if that sounds good to them. Several people are gathered in a large room with high windows and ornate architecture. A hole is visible in the ceiling and a gloved hand checks a watch. Eden turns his back to the group and declares his work hour is over. Eden faces the group and says they can do what they want, but nothing will change. A masked figure states the 10th Battalion will be temporarily established and Damon will be interrogated by the 8th Battalion after the meeting. Damon walks away as armed figures surround him while Dante and Sissana watch. Dante and Sissana stand together in the large room. Damon gives a thumbs up behind his back. Dante thinks that Damon Hyung keeps believing in him. He thinks he had the opportunity to prove himself but could not show any result in the end. Sissana's foot is shown as she calls Dante a 500-willed idiot. Sissana holds her weapon and asks Dante if he is pissed off. Dante reacts in surprise with blood on his face. Sissana fights the monster and reminds Dante he was dragged around by sins all week and beaten by the 3rd General. Sissana asks Dante if he wants comforting words. Dante yells at her to shut up while the monster calls them annoying humans. Sissana attacks the monster, identified as extortion. Dante coughs and asks what the gas is. The monster states humans do not have wings. The monster named Pickpocket grabs Sissana and says humans cannot help but fall due to gravity. Sissana is tossed by the monster and thinks she cannot give comfort. The monster hits Sissana. Sissana thinks she does not know what way Udam found, but she will not lean on anyone. Dante is injured but thinks Sissana is amazing and all the Sin's attacks were nothing. Sissana declares she will definitely kill 60 billion Sins someday. The monster roars with wide eyes and a gaping mouth. Sissana punches the monster and shouts she will become the minister for sure. Sissana screams that she will lead those rotten bastards with her fingers. Dante tells her to stay still if she does not know what she is doing and calls her a useless idiot. Dante jumps onto the monster's back. Sissana looks surprised and asks what Dante is doing. Dante screams as his arm weapon glows. The monster flies through the air with Dante on its back as red energy emanates from him. Dante screams as he continues his relentless attack on the monster. A large explosion erupts from the point where he strikes. Sissana floats in the air, calling Dante an idiot and remarking on his childishness. She lands and then asks him what he would do if he became the minister. Sissana questions if he could change the execution division as Dante stands on the defeated monster. She states that the minister's commands are absolute. Sissana adds that many disasters could have been avoided if the execution division acted faster and Dante agrees. She says if she were the minister she would not let them run free, but Dante replies that commanding sounds stiff and is not his style. Dante tells her he will first show those people his strength. Sissana looks surprised and asks what he means by that. Dante admits he is weaker than those people right now and apologizes for today's events. He smiles and says he will make everyone follow him with his own strength even if it takes a long time. Sissana looks at him and tells him you too. Elsewhere, Sarissa introduces herself asking if someone is a newbie executioner with a goal. Sarissa then asks if there is no rule that they have to save humans. She then says they should protect the people of their district. Back with Dante and Sissana, Sana thinks this is why Udam chose him, while Dante tells her that as expected from a little kid, she can resolve things herself later. Sissana asks why he is speaking down to her when he is only 1 year younger. Dante smiles and says he is not going about this by himself and thought of it after seeing her. Sissana looks at him intently. Sissana says that is nonsense and begins to state her original age. Dante tells her that even though she is a 5th tier like him, she is more skillful because of her experience, adding that he might become something if he works as hard as her. Sissana and Dante look at each other. Dante smiles and suggests they work hard together as fellow 5th tiers. Sissana punches Dante in the arm. The monster roars as Dante and Sissana stand ready to fight it again. The monster expresses surprise that they are humans with weapons and admits its ignorance. The monster shouts that its nail did not break and states that its kind's lives are made not to win fights but to kill people. The monster then says it will kill other humans, instead calling it the law of conservation of mass. The monster flies away towards downtown and Sissana shouts to headquarters. A woman with pink hair at a control panel says they are mobilizing all of the 8th battalion available on site. Another person calls out to the 8th general, a girl named Sasha who is eating pizza. Sasha asks why the hooded bird is currently busy. Sasha is surprised the monster got away and calls the level 1 team idiots, then says the dispatch team consists of Udamon's lousy kids but wonders why they should care. After about 10 minutes Sasha is still at her desk. Sasha looks angry and curses. A masked figure asks Sasha why she is so loud and reminds her they are off duty working like a dog because of her. The masked figure chuckles and calls her Miss Sasha. Blood splatters across a person's face. The masked figure states that this heavy duty is what they have to do in their unit as a person is shown tied up and bleeding. The masked figure asks Udam if they should start talking and tells him to detail his activity for the last 50 years. Udam, covered in blood and bullets, asks if they are asking him after putting bullets in his head and calls the masked figure a pervert mask. Sasha and another masked figure are at a control panel and Sasha says that the former 6th general is truly a monster even though she herself is not human. The masked figure asks Udam if he did not like the gift he got for him. The masked figure replies that the gift is as interesting as Udam. Sasha says that as for it being the method to destroy sin altogether, she asks if they should wait a bit and see what results it brings while looking at a map with glowing points. The monster flies through the air above the city with Dante and Sissana chasing it from below. Sissana complains about useless bastards and no answer from headquarters, while Dante says this is all his fault. Dante explains he thought the monster had definitely died because it fell from the 15th floor. Sissana tells him it has not even been a week since he joined, so it will be difficult to throw away common sense. The monster's nail is shown and it states that the one common sense that will not change is. The monster flies towards 2 students and says any sin whose nail gets destroyed will disappear. Dante screams human and then the people. Dante takes off his shoe. He then throws his shoe at the monster while Sissana is on the ground. The shoe hits the monster's nail and Dante exclaims he copied what Damon Hyung did and it worked. Sissana tells Dante to stop messing around. Dante kicks the monster while shouting die as the 2 students look surprised. The 2 students look shocked and ask what the hell is happening. Sissana shouts at the monster to stop trying to take her freedom and calls it a human weapon, threatening to rip its nail instead of its mouth. Sissana attacks the monster, stating she will be the one taking its life. Sissana is bleeding from her mouth and expresses frustration about having to use her power with people around. Two students comment on the high school girl levitating and ask if that is a bone in her arms. Andante shouts at the students to get away. Andante shields one of the students from the monster's attack. Andante is shown with blood dripping from his mouth. Andante's eyes marked by the chapter title Episode 11 and the word mistake are visible. The monster grabs one of the students while Andante and Sissana are still fighting. A scene of blackmail unfolding. The monster states it took him. The grabbed student falls through the air as Andante's eyes are shown changing colors. A monster holds one student captive as another student plummets through the air. Its red eyes glow as it declares that it has taken the student. As the grabbed student continues to fall, Dante's eyes begin to change colors. Meanwhile, Sissana stands on the monster's back, manifesting a golden weapon and purple energy. The monster roars, throwing Sissana off just as the student lands hard on the ground. Sissana lands and immediately looks with concern at the injured student. Dante stands up, shouting no at the monster. His purple eyes glow as he states that someone got hurt. Sissana holds the injured student, telling Dante to calm down and assuring him the student is not badly hurt. The monster faces Dante while Sissana urges him to focus and prove his strength. The monster laughs, asking if Dante is frozen in shock, as Sissana reminds him he said this would be spectacular. Dante turns his back to Sissana, confirming that he knows. He then turns to the monster, declaring he will destroy the nail. The monster laughs in response, finding the situation so much fun. It threatens to take on Dante's lives and happiness, but he vows to take everything from the monster. Dante charges forward with his golden weapon as the monster attacks with purple tendrils. He dodges its attack and slashes at it with his weapon. The monster shouts at Dante to die already, but he continues his charge. Dante uses an ability called Severance, sending pink energy slashes through the monster's tendrils. He shouts at the monster, asking if it is going after the people behind them again. Dante and Sissana stand back to back, surrounded by purple energy, as Dante states he is not human. The monster's red eye is visible as it questions how Dante got behind it. Dante and Sissana stand ready with their weapons and glowing eyes, with Dante declaring he is an executor. Sissana then attacks the monster with her weapon. The monster observes her attack, wondering if it is a straight line strike or a thrust, believing it can block it. Sissana's attack hits the monster with an explosive force, surprising her. The monster's eye shows confusion, realizing the attack was not a thrust. Sissana performs a sweeping slash with her weapon, calling it weed-cleaving form. The monster screams as it is heavily damaged by her powerful attack. The damaged monster laments that it still had so much more it wanted to steal. Dante rushes towards the injured student, calling him Mr. He checks on the student, asking if he is in a lot of pain and saying he will call 119. Sissana looks at Dante, calling him an idiot and reminding him what she told him. The injured student Park Jio stands up and says he was wondering why a Sin showed up right outside his door. Park Jio smiles, asking if Sissana is the youngest of the 1st Battalion and if he has met Dante before. Sissana's red eyes widen in surprise as she states Park Jio is an executor. Park Jio heads back inside, saying he is going to get an earful from his boss. He tells Dante and Sissana good work, and Dante profusely apologizes to Mr. Glybeck. Smoke billows from the area where the monster was defeated. Dante and Sissana stand in the smoke, and Sissana says she was genuinely surprised, thinking an actual human had gotten hurt for a moment. Dante reflects that someone being an executor is definitely a shock. Hands in white gloves pinch Dante's cheeks, asking if it was quite a shock. Dante is surrounded by 3 people in white suits. Aspirin says he is adorable as the last executor, and another man comments on his muscles. Aspirin introduces herself as Aide Kim T while explaining that aides cannot see sins but provide support for executors. She explains she is assigned to the newly formed 10th Battalion, and Dante cries tears of joy, feeling the first warmth in the bureau. Dante asks if he reports to the bureau tomorrow, but Aspirin tells him he goes to school. Aspirin explains that executors do not age and blend into human society in disguises that suit their appearances. She states the quota is 10 sins per week, and additional assignments may be given beyond that. Aspirin asks if Dante has any more questions. Dante asks about joining the military, but Aspirin says he cannot. He then asks about the police, but Aspirin says he cannot do that either. Dante despairs on the floor as Aspirin declares he is a high school student forever. Dante realizes this is what it means for executors to be hidden everywhere, and he thought Park Jio was an ordinary guy. Dante's purple eye is shown. A student is shown falling through the air. Dante tells Sissana that someone got hurt because of him. Sissana's red eyes are shown as she recalls a man crying in flames, wondering if she could not save everyone. Sissana tells Dante to give it a rest. She tells him there is no end to self-blame and the injuries from an executor's battle were not serious. Sissana says she has seen countless executors crumble under that weight and Mr. Glybeck was the same way. Sissana playfully punches Dante, telling him he is a good person but needs to aim for the nail first. Dante yells that he gets it and is the executor. Sissana extends her hand to Dante, saying she will give him credit as his senior and is curious what kind of executor he will become. Dante is surprised by her kindness and thanks her, but Sissana then falls over laughing. Dante laughs heartily. Dante falls to the ground asking why again, as Sissana tells him not to pull out his power whenever he feels like it. Dante asks Sissana what she meant when she said Mr. Glybeck was the same. Sissana looks back saying that by the time she became an executor, Mr. Glybeck was already. She tells Dante if he is curious, he should go see for himself. Another man in a hoodie, Senior Winston, appears and says the area is cleaned up. Dante is surprised Winston was watching the whole time. Winston says he is not embarrassed and will see a lot of Dante. Winston says he will report the 10th Battalion's first mission was a success and he does not dislike kids who believe they are the main character. Winston's blue eyes are shown as he says there is a certain fun in watching Dante. Dante asks if he did okay. Winston says some executor guy got involved and works at a nearby construction site. Winston suggests visiting him might be a good learning experience to see there are executors like that too. Winston then states that man is trash. Dante's purple eye and Winston's blue eye are shown as Dante questions the term trash. Winston says that man has done nothing for over 200 years. A man in a hard hat is shown whom Winston calls trash, who abandoned his duties as an executor. Dante recalls the injured student asking if his dad can save everyone. A shadowed figure shouts at Glybeck to think about what he must prioritize as an executor. The green eye of the man in the hard hat is shown. The man in the hard hat, Glybeck thinks there are still spirited ones left in the bureau. Dante and Sissana look surprised as Dante questions an executor who abandoned his duties. Later that night, people's legs walk by as someone asks them to wait. A man harasses a woman offering to hang out and give her a free tour of Seoul. The man continues to harass her, suggesting fun and a trip to a hotel, making the woman look uncomfortable. A man with glasses intervenes, telling the harasser to stop because the woman clearly does not want this. The harasser reacts angrily, asking what the little shrimp said. The harasser's friend tells him to knock it off, but the harasser asks if he needs permission to talk to a girl. The man with glasses thinks people are less interested in others' business than one would think. A police certificate and an ID badge are shown as the man thinks his achievements do not make up for his unremarkable appearance. The man's eye behind his glasses is shown as he thinks for better or for worse. People walk by ignoring the scene. The man thinks people simply do not pay attention to others and says, "Excuse me." The man with glasses confronts the harasser and his friend while the woman stands behind them. The woman then states she is not a girl. The harasser and his friend look surprised. The woman's golden eye is shown as she adds she is not exactly a man either. Dante's eye is shown in shock. The harasser calls her a mood killer and tells her to say she speaks Korean from the start. His friend tells the man with glasses to get out of the way. The woman thanks the man with glasses. The man with glasses looks surprised, thinking it feels like he was actually the one who got helped. The man with glasses hopes what he did today was of some help to that person. The woman with golden eyes stands on a rooftop overlooking the city and says human cities are the best. Her eyes glow yellow as she smiles menacingly, saying human cities are utterly brimming with malice. A blue-skinned person with tentacles for hair says surprisingly Lord Moroa does not kill humans very often. The blue-skinned person named Mistrid looks at Lord Moroa. Lord Moroa tells Mistrid his grasp of human language has improved quite a bit. She calls Mistrid disgustingly ugly and asks when he will evolve. Mistrid apologizes. Mistrid asks if he may kill the insolent human from earlier as an act of apology, but Lord Moroa says killing bad guys is no fun. Lord Moroa states a good person is truly the finest thing. She describes the effort to live righteously, their morality, their self-restraint, and the despair of those left behind. Lord Moroa says the fact that one can strip away all of that with a single life is more thrilling than a simple kill. A man lies dead on the ground. The man with glasses, Shin Hee-woong, is shown smiling as he repeats, "Please stop." She clearly does not want this. Lord Moroa smiles, thinking what a wonderful first experience right as she arrived in Seoul. Mistrid asks if he should find another good person, but Lord Moroa says it is time to start the mission. Lord Moroa reminds Mistrid of her promise to let him kill those amusing ones. Mistrid says thanks to Lord Moroa, he was able to become something far beyond an ordinary sin. Mistrid says he is ready as soon as Lord Moroa gives the order. Lord Moroa smiles widely. Lord Moroa and Mistrid walk away saying good luck to those with weak hearts, especially the ones called executors. Dante asks Sissana about the special training he was told about yesterday. He looks surprised as she played a rhythm game. A game screen showed Sissana had achieved a high score of 998,702 with 298 perfects. Sissana then told him his biggest problem was not controlling his power and just going all out. She explained this was custom special training for him and told him to slam his head into something if he had complaints. Dante's fist was shown ready to punch. He hit a punching machine and questioned what hitting it with normal strength had to do with controlling his power. Sissana looked surprised at him and he looked surprised back. She remarked it sounded like he had complaints about his superior's orders. Dante stated they were a purely decorative 10th Battalion. Sissana asked who was effectively the commander in a battalion with just the two of them. Dante replied it was Captain Sissana. She reminded him she was the one who asked for special training first, and he agreed to no more backtalk. Dante decided he did not care if he had to hit the punching machine hundreds of times as long as it made him stronger. Sissana said she was curious what kind of executor he would become, at least for now. Dante declared he was going to become a truly righteous executor. He punched the machine again with force. He continued to punch the speed bags. He kept punching the speed bags. Dante then questioned what exactly the righteous executor he wanted to be even looked like. Before all that, a scene unfolded outside an arcade. In a classroom, a student wondered if it was okay to stop being a model student while a teacher noted on Dante's unusual absence. The word dad was repeated over images of food and then windmills at sunset. A man on the ground covered in blood asked his dad if he could save everyone, then gasped awake. The man sat up on the ground looking disoriented with a hard hat beside him. His sweating face was shown in a close-up as he covered his mouth in distress. The man sat alone on the ground looking exhausted. A fellow worker called him Glybek and questioned why he was dozing off when he usually worked even during breaks. The worker invited Glybek to eat with them, mentioning a place with good gukbap, but Glybek declined. Another worker told their boss to leave Glybek alone, saying fussing over the foreign guy killed the mood. The boss told Glybek he had somewhere to be and gave him a red packet promising a proper meal next time. Glybek took the packet and said yes sir. Glybek threw the red packet into a dumpster. Glybek worked alone, was watched by other workers, and then stood by himself on a bridge as others walked away. Glybek walked along the street and wondered if a freshly descended Sin appeared nearby as purple energy glowed in the distance. He saw a couple discussing a cafe with live bands in an alley. Glybek looked up then down with a somber expression. He walked away stating he did not want anything anymore. Glybek thought there were too many people in the 21st century and he hated people so much. A man with long hair told Glybek he did not care that he had given up fighting, but he must stay in Seoul where the bureau could keep an eye on him. The man with long hair told Glybek there would be a problem if he ever defected like Gideon did. Glybek thought he hated this world. He continued thinking he hated sins and executors and most of all himself. Glybek walked through a city street thinking the zones where forgetfulness gas had been deployed were the only places he did not hate. He thought about the feeling of the whole world freezing with him and the relief of not getting tangled with other humans. Glybek was surrounded by a hazy mist, wishing he could forget everything like ordinary people do. He walked alone, wondering how long he would continue like a corpse, drifting, unable to truly live or die. Someone screamed for help and Glybek's eye was visible. People ran in terror from a large monster shouting about an earthquake and collapsing walls. A person screamed for help. The monster attacked people in the street. 2 people lay on the ground. Glybek watched the scene unfold. He identified the creature as a Sin. A close-up showed the Sin's gaping mouth. Glybek thought if forgetfulness gas had been deployed, then the bureau was already on the move. The Sin continued to attack people. Glybek ran away from the Sin. Someone kicked the Sin with great force. Glybek looked surprised. Dante kicked the Sin and stated this made it his 25th this week. The Sin screamed while holding a car. Dante ran towards the Sin as it threw the car. He was in mid-air. Dante delivered another powerful kick. A purple beam hit the Sin. Dante landed on the Sin. The Sin's mouth was wide open in a scream. Dante hit the Sin with glowing hands. He shouted that he hereby executed judgment. Dante struck the Sin with a glowing weapon. He stood over the defeated Sin thinking he did not even need his finisher, then looked surprised. Dante questioned who could move inside the forgetfulness gas. Glybek turned around and Dante recognized him as Mr. Beck. A close-up showed Glybek's eye. Dante waved and said he was Dan T and they had met a few days ago. He smiled and explained he came to see Glybek today, but then a Sin showed up. Dante looked at Glybek. Dante addressed him as Mr. Beck. Dante stated Glybek pretended he did not see that Sin. Glybek said if you do that, he added those people could end up getting hurt, and Dante replied there was no problem since he came. Dante looked at Glybek and Glybek looked back at him. Dante took Glybek's hand and asked him to please tell him. Dante said all he knew about Mr. Beck was what he heard from other people. He told Glybek he was angry about what just happened and about him ignoring a Sin even though he was an executor. Dante stated there was something he absolutely wanted to ask Glybek directly. Flashback showed a young Glybek asking his dad if he could save everyone, then a voice telling Glybek to choose and calling him trash, leading Dante to ask if it was because. Dante asked if Glybek stopped fighting Sins altogether because he failed to save someone precious to him. Glybek's face showed a pained expression. Glybek asked if Dante heard that much, and Dante asked if it would be weird to say Glybek reminded him of his dad. Dante revealed his dad also died while trying to save someone else. Glybek remained silent looking down. A birthday cake symbolized the day Dante's dad died. Dante remembered his family celebrating and then a crime scene thinking if his dad had turned his back or failed to save someone on purpose. Dante's father was shown. Dante told Gleibek he felt his dad would have the same expression Gleibek had now. Gleibek tried to speak, but Dante interrupted saying he did not know what happened to Gleibek or other executors who stopped fulfilling their duty. Dante asserted that executors were the ones who sacrificed themselves for someone else. Dante stated he did not want executors or his dad to be like that looking at Gleibek. Dante continued that he did not want them to ever regret the good they did. Gleibek stood silently. Gleibek said how nice. He told Dante that his purity was the kind that had never lost anything. Gleibek stated that Dante would face the same kind of choice his father did someday. He added he had seen countless executors crumble under that weight. Gleibek told Dante he would learn there was no such option as saving everyone, and that some lives could only be saved by paying a heavy price like his father did. Gleibek said there were times when no matter how much you gave you still failed to save anyone. He told Dante that his moment just had not come yet, and Dante asked what he meant. Dante saw a vision of Gleibek standing on a pile of skulls and wondered what happened to him. Dante looked determined. He thought that precisely because Gleibek was like this he might know the answer Dante was looking for. Dante asked Mr. Beck to please teach him. Dante asked Gleibek to teach him how to make the right choice as dark energy surrounded Gleibek. Dante looked surprised as Gleibek smiled. Sissana receives a call on a rooftop from the Bureau of Execution. She reports the 10th Battalion's subjugation count for the week is 32 sins. An excited woman on the phone praises Sana for her amazing subjugation count. Sana asks if there are any special notes and the woman confirms there are. The woman introduces herself as Kim T-Rim and announces her assignment as aide to the 10th Battalion. Sana recognizes Kim T-Rim as her former aide and asks if she was demoted. Kim T-Rim explains that aides are bound to the Bureau for life regardless of battalion. Sana thanks T-Rim for her support. Kim T-Rim then relays information about something from the 9th Battalion. She reports consecutive disappearances of malice in Hinam Gacheng and Hwaesung over 5 days. Kim T-Rim states a director's order requires all battalions to stay alert. Sana realizes the 10th Battalion is excluded and tells T-Rim about a wiretap. She acknowledges the wiretap and decides to pass the information along. Sana jumps off the building to find her subordinate. Meanwhile, Park Jio's purple tentacles attack a man as Dante watches. Dante looks surprised as Dehyun is attacked by the dark energy. He wonders what these tentacles are that are attacking Dehyun. Dante recalls destroying the caterpillar's nail and questions the source of this new attack. A large arm with blood splatters appears as he considers the situation. A black burst of energy appears against a yellow background. Dante punches a purple tentacle stating it is another sin. His hand grabs a spiky part of the tentacle drawing blood. Dehyun looks surprised with a scratch on his face. Dante is surrounded by the purple tentacles. He kicks a tentacle away from Dehyun. A tentacle then grabs Dante and lifts him. He shouts in frustration while caught by the tentacle. Dante remains suspended by the tentacles as Dehyun lies on the ground. He realizes he cannot find a nail and concludes this is not the Sin's main body. The tentacles throw Dante into the air. Dante recalls a past training session where he was told there is more than one way to handle his power. He remembers Sissana explaining that while the 4th Battalion uses grace, every executor can use a specific power and Aspirin is shown using her healing power. Sissana reveals that power is omniscient. Dante asks if she means batteries, but Sana clarifies it refers to omniscient and omnipotent. Sana explains to expand the power flowing from his heart into a sphere wrapping himself in it. A large glowing golden sphere expands around Dante and Dehyun. Dante exclaims he felt something catching on it and Sana confirms it. Sana explains that malice is the force leaking from a Sin's body and is the counterpart to their power. Dante understands he can use omniscient to find the Sin and activates a glowing gauntlet on his arm. He prepares to strike a large Sin creature, stating it will reveal itself no matter where it hides. Dante prepares to strike a purple tentacle with his glowing gauntlet. He is surrounded by purple energy and states he can track down and smash the Sin's nails. The golden sphere of omniscient expands around the city street. Dehyun and Dante are inside the golden sphere. Dante looks around inside the sphere, seeing many small glowing creatures. He notes he does not feel the catching sensation this time as he holds Dehyun. Dante realizes the number of small attacking Sins is insane. He shouts that something is coming and Dehyun looks surprised. Dante holds Dehyun and dodges multiple glowing projectiles. He carries Dehyun while swiftly avoiding more incoming attacks. Dante is hit by several glowing red spikes and screams in pain. He observes these attacks are unlike previous Sins and are from low-level Sins with no aggression. Dante notices the small Sins are completely ignoring everyone else. He deduces someone is targeting them from a distance where no one can perceive them. Dante is hit again and questions if they are targeting the executor's heart. Dante's foot lands with purple energy crackling around it. He jumps high into the air carrying Dehyun. Dante expresses surprise that he can jump this high now. Dehyun shouts Dante's name. Dante tells Mr. Beck to stay where he is, but Dehyun yells to be left alone. Dehyun says he is not worth saving and asks to be left alone. Dante shouts he does not want to leave Dehyun. Dante holds Dehyun as they are high above the street dodging attacks. They continue to evade projectiles in mid-air. Dehyun questions Dante's actions. Dante declares that no matter what Dehyun thinks of himself, he would regret turning his back on him. Dante states he would regret it even if Dehyun abandoned his duty as an executor. Dehyun looks at Dante with a pained expression. Dante is struck by a blade and cries out. Both Dante and Dehyun crash through a window and fall to the ground. Dante observes another strike aimed right at his heart and realizes it is not random. His eyes glow purple and energy crackles around his hand. A large, shadowy sin monster looms over them and Dante questions if it is the main body. Dante activates his glowing gauntlet. Dehyun looks up and states the bureau did send someone. Dante thinks if the sin is truly gunning for his heart. A purple tentacle lunges towards them. Dante is impaled by the tentacle and says he will gladly offer an arm. He vows to smash the sin's nail himself in exchange as a mysterious hand with painted nails appears. Dante clenches his fist ready to use the finisher he mastered during training. Dante manifests a large purple axe. His eyes glow as he prepares to attack while Dehyun looks on. Dante swings his axe at a purple tentacle as Dehyun runs past him. Dante yells at Mr. Beck to stay behind him. The mysterious hand with painted nails reaches out. Dante is surprised as a purple tentacle is deflected by Dehyun. Dante realizes the attack is going for Mr. Beck. Dehyun is impaled by a tentacle as Dante looks on in shock. Dehyun thinks about living peacefully for 100 years without crossing paths with executors or sins. He recalls that executors only filled their quotas and sins could be avoided with omniscient. Dehyun remembers avoiding sins with his omniscient power. The mysterious character with painted nails smiles menacingly. Dante shouts Mr. Beck's name as they are both falling. A large ice formation appears on the street, and Dehyun wonders what Dante is. Dehyun thinks that because of Dante, he has run into sins and executors. The mysterious figure looks at his shoe. He notes two executors nearby, Dante and Gleibik. The man with purple hair reports to headquarters that the 10th Battalion successfully subjugated one sin. He adds that restoration of Duncheon-dong is now underway. The man concludes his report with no additional malice detected. The mysterious white-haired figure is seen on top of a moving train. He laughs that it was a waste because he could have killed at least one executor if they had stayed longer. He states they were told to stay under the radar for now and that their mission is over for today. Mistrid, a blue-skinned subordinate, tells the white-haired figure that the opponent was not worthy of his attention. The white-haired figure warns Mistrid not to get cocky and asks if he plans to eat something delicious all by himself. The white-haired figure announces it is time to start the executor hunt. Mistrid asks which executor they should start with. The white-haired figure smiles. The scene shifts back to Dante and Dehyun near a river. The white-haired figure decides they will start with the one who looks more fun. Dante looks at Dehyun, who has white smoke rising from his arm. Dante shouts asking what Dehyun is doing. Dante grabs Dehyun and asks why he keeps running away. Dante and Dehyun look at each other with intense expressions. A large construction site is bustling with several workers and heavy machinery. One worker alerts his boss, telling him to look over there. The boss looks on with a worried expression. He then asks Mr. Beck what happened to his arm. Mr. Beck's green eyes are shown as he responds. Mr. Beck explains he lost an arm yesterday on his way home, prompting the boss to question if he truly lost it. The other worker asks the boss about an accident yesterday and questions why Mr. Beck returned to work the next day. Mr. Beck looks away uncomfortably. He appears terrified and struggles to speak. The boss and the other worker look shocked as Mr. Beck tries to ask if they could eat. Mr. Beck stands facing the two workers. He then quickly turns and runs away from them. The other worker points asking why Mr. Beck is acting creepy and if he is worried about compensation. Mr. Beck continues to run. The boss calls out Mr. Beck's name. Mr. Beck stops on a walkway, bending over out of breath. He thinks he ran away again and looks distressed. Mr. Beck walks up some stairs thinking he cannot be like Dante. A voice shouts Mr. Beck's name asking what he is doing. Dante grabs Mr. Beck on a path asking why he keeps running away. Both Dante and Mr. Beck look stressed and out of breath. Mr. Beck thinks an executioner he did not want a meet came to see him as someone calls Gleibik the worst kind of trash. Mr. Beck tells Dante he figured it would be fine since the sin targeting them disappeared anyway. Dante looks anxious reading a message on his phone that states it has been deleted. Dante apologizes for getting worked up and Mr. Beck says he accepts it easily and is a strange one. Dante smiles and tells Mr. Beck he just does not think he lies. Mr. Beck's eyes widen in surprise. Mr. Beck then says Dante's name. Mr. Beck tells Dante not to get involved with him from now on. Mr. Beck tells Dante he really should not get involved with him while Dante's arm glows. Mr. Beck's eye shows a reflection of Dante's glowing arm. Dante looks scared and holds his stomach. A convenience store exterior is now visible. Two people sit outside the store eating and one says it reminds him of going to the valley as a kid. Dante hands Mr. Beck some food and Mr. Beck asks if shops sell cooked food these days. Dante says he just heated it up in the microwave and Mr. Beck asks about the microwave. Mr. Beck eats the food with chopsticks. Dante smiles and asks if it tastes good. Mr. Beck asks if it is Stampot. A child shouts that they are having Stampot for dinner. Dante tells Mr. Beck it is a sausage lunchbox and asks if he knows sausages. Mr. Beck says his son liked a similar dish and that it is good. Mr. Beck says he has not had a proper meal in almost 100 years, which shocks Dante. Dante asks what and Mr. Beck says he does not really have an appetite, adding that an executioner does not die just because he does not eat. Mr. Beck says times have changed but kids still like sausages. Dante's purple eye is shown looking thoughtful. Dante says he thought Mr. Beck really cared about his son and Mr. Beck agrees. Mr. Beck says his son was a kind kid who loved Stampot but he has been dead a long time now. Dante looks sad and surprised. A flashback shows a man crying over a dead child and asking his dad if he can save everyone. Mr. Beck says it has been 217 years this year. A girl with pink hair shouts for Glybeck to choose now, and a boy says dad. Mr. Beck thinks he was the worst kind of father who could not save his own son and an incompetent executioner. He thinks someone like him who could not save anyone has no right to protect anyone ever again. Mr. Beck says that is why he does not want to be involved with anything anymore. Dante stares with an intense expression. Dante covers his face with his hand. Mr. Beck looks at Dante and says he disagrees. Mr. Beck eats a sausage. Dante tells Mr. Beck that like he said they are not the same as his dad. They are executors. Dante tells Mr. Beck his dad said he was going to catch every last criminal in the world. A young Dante asks his dad how he could catch them all by himself. Dante's dad brushes his teeth and says he will do it anyway. Dante's dad smiles and says he cannot let bad guys hurt his Dante. Dante thinks his dad must have known it was impossible. Young Dante thinks his dad definitely knew it was impossible. Dante says even so the reason his dad still risked his life to save someone on his birthday. Dante thinks it was because there was a certain view his dad wanted to protect while a funeral is shown. Dante asks Mr. Beck if he did not have something like that too. Mr. Beck closes his eyes as a scene of windmills in a field is shown. Mr. Beck asks Dante what that has to do with them being executors. Dante says even though he lost his most precious person, his dad, thanks to this second life as an executor, he keeps finding new things to protect. Dante thinks of his mom, his friends T-Wall, Nuna, and everyone at the bureau. Dante tells Mr. Beck he could still find something new and precious too. The construction workers look up at something. Mr. Beck clenches his fist on the table. Dante smiles and says maybe that is what his dad wanted to protect, things like that. Dante tells Mr. Beck he wants to see that same view too, so he will not give up even when the moment he talked about comes. Mr. Beck covers his face with his hand. Dante smiles and thinks maybe he just does not want to leave Mr. Beck alone. Dante tells Mr. Beck he wanted to ask what a truly righteous executor is but ended up talking about himself instead. Dante looks at Mr. Beck and says thank you. Dante asks what Mr. Beck said, then realizes he is leaving already. Mr. Beck shouts Dante's name as he runs away. Dante smiles to himself. He thinks it is not just kids who like sausages these days. Dante thinks his dad loved sausages more than anything too. Mr. Beck walks up some stairs and thinks Dante is an unusual kid for an executor. Mr. Beck thinks about precious things. He thinks about a proper meal for the first time in ages and a conversation with another person. Mr. Beck thinks there is a part of him that believes maybe those tiny trivial moments. A man smiles while serving Stampot to a happy child. A dish of Stampot with sausage is shown. Mr. Beck thinks about the sausage lunchbox and decides to buy one on his way home. Mr. Beck asks someone if they know something. A smiling person with fangs says every human has a shadow. Mr. Beck looks shocked. The person says Mr. Beck is not even human yet covered in shadows. The person sits on stairs and says there is no malice coming off Mr. Beck at all. Mr. Beck's eye widens in shock. Mr. Beck thinks it is odd there should not be a human without malice and asks the person who they are and if they have business with him. The person says the malice that humans emit and their filthy shadows are what they are. The person with yellow eyes smiles menacingly and says that is what they the sins are. Mr. Beck looks shocked as the person calls him an executor. Mr. Beck is attacked by dark purple tentacles. Mr. Beck releases a blast of white malice. Malice is the bad intent that every person carries. Just as executors are beings made of power, sins are beings made of malice. Mr. Beck is thrown through the air and the voice wonders about this guy. The sin grabs Mr. Beck and asks if he is controlling malice. The sin thinks there is no doubt it is the one who attacked them yesterday. The sin thinks it is an intelligent sin that knows about executors. Mr. Beck looks terrified. Mr. Beck and the sin are thrown through the air. The sin kicks Mr. Beck and asks if he is surprised and flustered. The sin kicks Mr. Beck, who crashes to the ground. Mr. Beck and the sin both fall to the ground. The sin smiles and says it is true those with white hearts really are something else. The sin attacks Mr. Beck with dark tentacles. The sin shouts that Mr. Beck is nothing special and is on his tiptoes. Blood drips from Mr. Beck's mouth as he gasps. Mr. Beck is impaled by dark tentacles while the Sin looks on. Mr. Beck thinks the Sin knows the Executor's weak points and avoids the Vitals, so it wants to play with him. The Sin laughs and says that was the plan, but now it wants to ask why he is not struggling. Mr. Beck is pinned to the ground by tentacles and looks surprised. Dante smiles in a memory. Mr. Beck's eye shows a tear falling. Mr. Beck thinks to Dante that he talked about sausages and views, but blood drips from Mr. Beck's hand. Mr. Beck thinks his body will not move anymore. Mr. Beck thinks his body already knows that any view he truly wanted to protect is long gone and he does not have the right to struggle. The Sin smiles and tells Mr. Beck to kill it if he is going to. A man with blue hair and a hat calls Glybeck the worst kind of trash. Mr. Beck thinks if this is the end that befits someone who used to be called a father, then he does not care if he dies. A young Glybeck is told to hurry and pray. Two figures stand by a tombstone and one tells the other to hurry and pray. Mr. Beck currently thinks he does not care if he dies while a young Glybeck is questioned about his actions. He then reflects that no one's death is meaningless as Glybeck is told to hurry and pray by a figure at a tombstone. Glybeck then faced his first death being stabbed in a street. He died saving his wife when his son was 5 years old. A human who sacrifices themselves for another is granted 2 rights. When Glybeck opened his eyes again, an executor like him stood beside him. The executor was Aspirin, a young girl with pink hair and different colored eyes. She told him his power was a gift from the Pure One above in Rotterdam in 1791. Glybeck spent his days as a doctor by day in Rotterdam. He also worked as an executor by night, living a life where he could truly save everyone. He was happy then as a father when his son Theo announced dinner was ready. He asked Theo if he wanted to be a doctor when he grew up. Theo said no because he was not as smart as his dad, the doctor who never lost a patient. Theo declared he would be a soldier to protect their town so his dad could save people without worrying. Glybeck looked at his son with a gentle smile. He believed his choices had never been wrong. Then someone called out for Dr. Glybeck in a snowy town. A voice urgently called for the doctor about a critical patient. Another voice called for Dr. Glybeck from another location. That day was stranger than usual. Dr. Glybeck looked up with a worried expression. He wondered what had happened outside as he observed a room filled with injured people. He put on a face covering as someone informed him that war had broken out with the British Army and resistance clashing in the south, causing complete chaos. He was told the soldiers were holding them back. A young Theo in a soldier's uniform said he would protect his father so he could focus on treating people. Glybeck reacted to Theo's words while putting on medical gloves. He instructed 2 others to handle emergency treatment in order and stated he would perform the surgeries one by one. Glybeck reassured everyone he would not let a single person die and would save them all. 2 men looked at Dr. Glybeck with relief. A woman in a long dress walked past the men calling out Glybeck's name. Glybeck looked determined, wearing his face covering. Aspirin and Winston arrived, and Winston asked if a sin caused this. Winston explained that during war sins descend drawn by the massive malice of humans. Glybeck stated they were on the clock if even Winston got hit. Winston said the sins were estimated level 3 atrocious and there were too many of them. Aspirin stated she had pinned their feet down with her grace, but they lacked enough firepower and told them to move. Someone asked Dr. Glybeck about these people and if he was planning to go anywhere. A hand grabbed Glybeck's arm. A woman on a bed asked the doctor to look at her because she had a child. Glybeck looked distressed while other injured people also looked on. Patients called out to Glybeck asking what a physician could do on a battlefield and begging for treatment and salvation. Glybeck told everyone there were plenty of other competent doctors, but a patient insisted there was no doctor in Rotterdam better than him. Glybeck looked conflicted. He thought that as a doctor he had people to save, and as an executor he had people to protect. Glybeck closed his eyes in thought. He thought rationally that he was not the only doctor there. He realized there were only 3 executors including himself. He remembered that there was no such thing as a person whose death did not matter. Glybeck looked determined, thinking if this was the path that saved more lives. He told Senior Aspirin to hurry as Aspirin asked if he was sure about this. Glybeck stated that as an executor he would do what must come first, believing this was how they saved the greatest number of people. The injured patients looked on with wide eyes. Glybeck walked away thinking his choices had never been wrong. He walked past the injured people. Glybeck's eyes widened in horror. He saw Theo lying wounded on a stretcher. Theo told his father that people were in danger. Glybeck screamed Theo's name in anguish. A man asked Glybeck if that was his son as Aspirin and Winston looked on. Glybeck urgently called for Senior Aspirin asking for help, stating Theo's leg was completely shattered and his grace alone would not be enough, so he had to operate on him. Aspirin looked at Glybeck with a bloodied face and a shocked expression. She closed her eyes as blood dripped from her forehead. Aspirin explained that Theo's muscle and bone were destroyed. He had lost a lot of blood, and even with grace, this was beyond regeneration. Winston knelt beside Glybeck and Theo, apologizing to Glybeck about his son. Winston then told Glybeck they had to go. Glybek cried, realizing his son had no chance. Winston told Glybek he counted 50 sins, which was more than enough to wipe an entire city off the map. He explained that remaining local executors were dispatched to Haiti and Serbia, so only the three of them could stop this now. Winston stated he specialized in detection and aspirin in treatment, so they needed Glybek's strength. Glybek clutched his head in agony. Aspirin told Glybek there was nothing to agonize over. She reminded him that it was one life versus 100, and the one who chose what must come first for an executor was him. Aspirin stated that just a moment ago Glybek chose the soldiers on the battlefield and the people of this city over the patients in this room. She told him that as an executor that was the right choice to save more lives, and the fact that it was his son did not make that choice wrong. Glybek cried out for his dad. Theo told Glybek that even the townsfolk were being attacked by something they could not see, and many injured people would be coming soon. Glybek cried out Theo's name. Theo told Glybek he knew that every night his father was protecting them from something. Theo said he knew Glybek had some kind of special power. Theo stated he was always the one being protected, so he wanted to protect his father just once. Glybek cried as Theo told him he was still an amazing doctor. Theo asked if his father could save everyone. Theo told Glybek he would be fine, so Glybek should do what he had to do. Glybek cried, remembering their promise that there was no one whose death did not matter. Glybek saw the chaos outside with injured people and monsters attacking soldiers. He clenched his fist tightly. He thought he had believed there was not a single person whose life could be thrown away. Glybek walked away from Theo as a scale of justice burned behind him. Glybek declared he would operate on Theo. Aspirin and Winston looked shocked and bloodied. Aspirin screamed Glybek's name. A new character with long white hair and glowing eyes then asked Glybek if he did not care if he died, stating executors were something else. She said she saw many humans on her way there, and one was entangled in dark vines behind her. She recalled that right before they died, every last one of them said. A bloody man screamed, "Please save me, I do not want to die." The white-haired character smiled menacingly, asking if it was not something like that. Glybek realized this was an accumulation of experience, so it was not a newly descended sin. The white-haired character said executors were different, and Glybek was so boring it made her not even want to kill him. She wondered what she should do with him. Glybek looked confused as she stated she was looking forward to this, and now she was just disappointed. The white-haired girl addressed Glybek as Mr. Beck. A man then approached the white-haired girl, saying he came to check on her because she seemed off that day. The man asked why she was floating in midair and about all the blood. He asked if she was okay. The white-haired girl grinned menacingly with sharp teeth. The man entangled in dark tendrils struggled and told the other man to run away. The white-haired girl manipulated the tendrils, saying this was how it worked, and that was the face she wanted to see. She was surrounded by dark purple tendrils. Her face was shadowed with glowing yellow eyes and a wide grin. The approaching man watched the dark tendrils. He stood frozen as the tendrils surrounded him. The entangled man screamed for the white-haired girl to stop it. His bloody hand reached out, pleading. The man said he could not take any more and did not want to choose anything anymore. Glybek's eyes showed deep despair. He thought he was someone who no longer had the right to protect anyone as Theo lay wounded. He remembered his roles as a doctor and an executor. Glybek knelt by Theo's bed, thinking that as a father he was trash who could not protect a single thing. The entangled Glybek screamed for it to just stop already. Glybek's eye was shown, followed by an image of a golden lamp. A girl with red eyes deflected an attack with a golden sword. She deflected another attack with a fierce expression. She used a left-right interception form to block multiple attacks. The man she was protecting looked shocked by the explosive deflections. The white-haired girl's eye widened in surprise. The man she was protecting jumped into the air above her. He told the girl with red eyes to cut it as she prepared her sword, and the other man watched. The man with dark hair punched the white-haired girl, shouting, "You bastard." The white-haired girl was hit, sending tendrils flying as the other man fell to the ground, and Glybek's eye was shown. The girl with red eyes was identified as Sissana. Dante attacked the white-haired girl with a powerful kick. Dante, with glowing purple eyes, demanded to know what she did to Mr. Beck as the white-haired girl grinned. Mr. Beck looked up with a worried expression. Dante stood ready for a fight while Sissana was also present. Mr. Beck knelt and asked how Dante and Sissana had arrived. Sissana maintained a serious look. She addressed Mr. Glybek, stating he had not changed at all. Mr. Beck appeared troubled as Sissana turned her head away. The scene shifted to a city at night as someone called out Sissana's name. Sissana stood on train tracks in the dark looking at her phone. She asked Dante why he had a pathetic look hunched over. Dante replied he had something to tell her about being attacked by a sin. Sissana responded that it was just another day at the office. Dante exclaimed he had lost control, and Sissana asked if he was bragging. He insisted she listen, explaining the sin was completely different from anything they had seen so far. He described how it controlled small sins, went straight for the heart, then vanished instantly without a trace of its main body. Dante added that it felt like the sin understood executioners and deliberately targeted them. He expressed a strong feeling that the sin would return for him or Mr. Beck again. Sissana pondered this while looking at her phone, and Dante asked what she was thinking. Ondanti then asked if she meant it disappeared for 5 days right after malice was detected. Sissana confirmed that exact report was sent to all battalions except theirs. She explained this was why she wanted to meet him, asking if it aligned with his experience, and he agreed it did. Sissana explained the sin ranking system, stating the 40 sins executed this week were minor evil level 1. Danny said if the sin he described had those abilities, it was at least atrocious. A flashback showed a monstrous sin, and a fallen executioner as a voice said it was worse than a sin of complicity. Danny said it was probably higher, and this was the one that attacked them yesterday. Danny kicked the sin, demanding to know what it did to Mr. Beck. Sissana stood next to a kneeling Mr. Beck. Sissana told Mr. Gleibeck that he did nothing even with such an absurd sin appearing. She accused him of abandoning his duty as an executioner. A series of flashbacks showed Mr. Beck's past failures, not just recently but a very long time ago. Sissana asked how many people he had pretended not to see with his power. Danny stated he could not just ignore something that dangerous. He said he wanted to help Mr. Beck, and Sissana replied they protected him whether he was a pathetic executioner or not. Danty asked why she had to say it like that and if she wanted him to praise Gleibeck. He said that once you talked to him, Mr. Beck was actually a good person. A flashback showed Mr. Beck saying someone like him who could not save anyone had no right to protect anyone ever again. Danty told Sissana that Mr. Beck was not just some common idiot. Sissana looked at him with a serious expression. She said that Danty was misunderstanding something. She explained that when it came to saving people, whether they were a good person or not did not matter to them. She reminded Danty that he once saved a human who believed in him and said she was the same. Sissana's arm was wrapped in a golden bandage-like material. Sissana stated they killed sins and saved people while holding out her arm with a glowing sword. She asked if that was not what executioners were supposed to do. Mr. Beck looked down with a sad expression. Mr. Beck tried to speak to Sana as another figure appeared behind them. The figure dodged a punch. The white-haired person said that was an interesting line coming from her. Sissana was shocked, realizing the person was suddenly behind them. The white-haired person held a glowing purple orb and asked about killing sins and saving people. Danty shouted Sissana's name, recognizing the ability as teleportation. Sissana looked enraged. She grabbed Mr. Beck by his jacket. Sissana used her sword to block an attack from the white-haired person who was kicking. Purple energy trailed from the white-haired person as they moved quickly. Danny cursed the white-haired person as he ran towards them. Danny confronted the white-haired person, declaring himself their opponent. Danny kicked the white-haired person who blocked the attack with their arm. He was shocked that his execution weapon did not even leave a scratch. Danty observed that the white-haired person did not feel physically heavy at all. The white-haired person kicked Danty. Danty landed on his feet. He grabbed the white-haired person's leg and flipped them over. Danny shouted that in that case he would pin them down with his body weight. He landed on top of the white-haired person. Danny pinned the white-haired person to the ground. The impact created a shockwave on the ground. Danny held the white-haired person down. The white-haired person looked up at him. Sissana shouted at Danty, asking what he was doing and to hit it. She wondered if he was hesitating. The white-haired person grinned, saying killing was a taboo for humans. The white-haired person laughed maniacally, asking if he could not kill them because they looked human. Danny pressed his execution weapon against the white-haired person's chest. Sissana looked surprised as Danty held his execution weapon to the white-haired person's throat. Danty denied hesitating. He explained it was his first time seeing a sin without a nail, and he was thinking where to aim. Danty warned that if he kept cutting, the white-haired person would eventually die. He asked Sissana where to hit this thing to kill it, and she replied this was her first time seeing a sin without a nail too. The white-haired person wiggled their feet. The white-haired person kicked Danty off them. The white-haired person laughed, saying it was disappointing as Danty landed on the ground. The white-haired person said they thought Danty would be a good guy after seeing him shield the old man yesterday. Danty retorted that their neck was not cute. He stomped his foot and told the white-haired person to listen. Danty stated he did not care if they had no nail or looked human. Mr. Beck and another man looked shocked, asking what happened as Danty added that the white-haired person trashed people's workplace. Danty declared that as long as they were a sin that attacked people, he would make sure they were erased. The white-haired person laughed as sharp purple spikes emerged from the ground around their foot. The white-haired person kicked Danty again. Danty was sent flying backwards. He crashed into the ground, creating a purple explosion. Danty wondered if the white-haired person was using martial arts or some kind of technique from a sin because their movements were too precise. He prepared to strike with his execution weapon. Danty shouted for them to bring it on. He swung his weapon, but the white-haired person dodged by jumping over him. Danty looked surprised. He shouted to Sissana that the white-haired person was going for her. Sissana shouted back, asking where they thought they were going. The white-haired person laughed as they kicked Mr. Beck in the face. Danty cursed the white-haired person, asking what they were trying to do. Sissana stated that a sin's primary instinct was to kill humans. The white-haired person grinned, saying this one was different. Sissana thought everything the white-haired person said and did was like a pleasure killer. Dante and Sissana attacked the white-haired person simultaneously. The white-haired person addressed them as executors. The white-haired person asked if they wanted to see something fun as red energy surrounded their hand. The white-haired person delivered a powerful kick to Dante. The white-haired person taunted them, saying they could not do this. Dante was hit repeatedly, wondering why every hit felt like getting struck by a truck. Sissana was also hit, calling the white-haired person a freakish bastard. Mr. Beck and the other man were shown lying on the ground. Mr. Beck looked up with blood on his face. He thought about saving people unconditionally and always executing sins. Mr. Beck watched Dante and Sissana fighting. He thought that Sissana represented the ideal executioner. Mr. Beck reflected that he used to chase that ideal too, but there came a moment that felt like a fixed fate. He continued thinking about realizing his power could not change anything at all. The white-haired person stood over the injured Dante and Sissana, asking if they truly would not break when that moment came. Sissana told Dante to stall the white-haired person for a bit. She revealed she had a plan, and Dante replied it was a coincidence because he needed one too. Sissana instructs Dante to stall Valdemar for a moment. She reveals her plan, and Dante replies that it is a coincidence as he needed one too. Valdemar observes them from a distance. He then begins to move forward. Valdemar charges as Dante and Sissana split up. Valdemar questions if their split is a diversion or a trap, and if they will not protect the humans. He then states that the reason does not really matter. Valdemar says he will play along a little, aiming a kick at Sissana. He grins, his eyes glowing yellow. As Sissana dodges, Dante kicks Valdemar in the face. Valdemar is sent flying back as Dante and Sissana continue to move. Dante tells Valdemar he is his opponent, asking if it is hard for him to focus. Valdemar grins, replying that Dante has been all bluster from the start. Dante shouts back that it is not bluster. He declares it is will, punching Valdemar. Elsewhere, Mr. Gleibeck in a green vest tries to wake up Mr. Beck. He releases a puff of gas from a canister. The canister is labeled Memory Lapse Gas 71. Sissana points, telling Mr. Gleibeck to take Mr. Beck and fall back. She tells him to run away as he always does and to take Mr. Beck with him. Sissana warns Mr. Gleibeck that if he has no will to fight, he should at least not get in the way. Mr. Gleibeck carries Mr. Beck down the stairs, questioning what will truly is. Valdemar states he does not need anything like that. He adds that this is just his little game, not a fight, as he bends over Dante. Blood drips onto the ground. Dante clutches his arm in pain. His eyes glow purple as he grits his teeth. Valdemar laughs, asking if there is still light in Dante's eyes. He tells Dante the reason his eyes do not go dead is simple. Valdemar kicks Dante in the stomach, explaining it is just because his body is tougher than a human's. He adds it is not because Dante's will is anything special, as he is sent flying back. Dante laughs, claiming this does not bother him at all. Valdemar tells Dante he has been avoiding his heart on purpose. Dante looks surprised by this revelation. Valdemar laughs, asking if he is surprised. Valdemar states that as long as Dante's heart is intact, he does not die. He states that yesterday was hilarious too, as he stands on a building overlooking the city. Valdemar recalls Dante and Mr. Gleibeck eating together after saving people. Valdemar says he would be thinking about the best way to kill Dante. Valdemar kicks Dante high into the air. Dante spits blood as he is sent flying. Valdemar states that until he crushes Dante's heart, he tells Dante he is not allowed to die. Valdemar grins maniacally. Dante tells Valdemar not to worry about that. He says they are definitely going to erase Valdemar first as they stare each other down. Dante shouts Sissana's name as he falls through the collapsing building. Valdemar looks surprised by a diversion from behind. Valdemar is also falling through the collapsing building. Sharp purple energy spikes erupt from the ground. Valdemar is hit by an attack as Dante falls through the debris. Sissana says Valdemar fell for such a cheap fake, telling him she is over here. Dante shouts nice one Sissana as she kicks Valdemar in the air. Sissana states that if it is still a sin, it has to have a weakness or a nail. She says she will find it and drag out the nail, even if she has to tear his whole body to pieces. Valdemar looks enraged, his eyes glowing red. Sissana says she went for both his neck and his heart. Dante and Sissana attack Valdemar in midair. Sissana stabs Valdemar with her sword. Dante then kicks Valdemar in the face. Valdemar screams in pain as Dante falls nearby. Valdemar yells that their teamwork is absolute trash, asking if they are playing around. He asks if they think they can erase him like this as Dante and Sissana rush him. Valdemar thinks about Sissana being the woman who keeps catching him off guard. He thinks about the boring old man who does not cling to his own life, and Dante who only charges in with his mouth running. Valdemar thinks it is like a pick and choose buffet. He smiles and says in that case. Valdemar wonders what kind of faces they will make if he kills the old man first. He smiles, saying it sounds fun. Sissana stabs Valdemar again. Valdemar looks surprised as he falls from the building. He acknowledges that Sissana is stubborn. Sissana tells him to knock it off already. Valdemar is hit with more purple energy spikes as he falls. Andante and Sissana continue to attack Valdemar in the air. Sissana asks Valdemar if he heard about executioners from someone and came under orders. Valdemar laughs and asks who knows. He states he was not expecting an honest answer anyway and was thrown off at first. Valdemar states he has never seen a sin with no nail like Sissana before. Sissana tells him there is no way she is losing to him. Sissana states that Valdemar is just somebody's little errand boy. Valdemar grins with a sharp-toothed smile. Sissana shouts his name. Andante carries a large container and jumps. Mr. Gleibeck and Mr. Beck are inside the container and Mr. Gleibeck yells at Andante to put him down. Andante shouts that evacuation is complete. Sissana and Valdemar stand on the building with the container nearby. Valdemar asks if that was on purpose. He asks if Sissana was provoking him and then punting Andante downward. Sissana holds her glowing sword. She states they are not just some slightly tougher humans. Sissana states they exist solely to erase sins and are executioners in the most literal sense. She activates Beak-1 drop form. Sissana is surrounded by purple energy as she charges at Valdemar. Valdemar stands still. He asks what Sissana just did. Valdemar asks if she was not going to show him something impressive. Sissana looks at him. She states executioners actually know how to use their heads unlike sins. Valdemar grins as debris falls around him. Valdemar asks if they only took out the pillars as the building collapses. Civilians on the ground look up at the collapsing building. Sissana jumps down and lands on the container. Andante asks if this is what they planned and if it is not a bit much. Sissana says the building was not even finished and they can rebuild it. Andante tells the civilians to get out quickly or get the gas ready. Mr. Gleibeck tells Andante he looks like a monster too. Mr. Gleibeck wonders if the kids really saved everyone. He wonders if he could have chosen to save everyone that day. Sissana and Andante notice a dark shadow rising from the ground. Sissana states it is not over yet. Andante asks what the shadows are. Civilians are caught in the shadows. Sissana says those are not shadows but malice. Valdemar laughs and says he will correct himself. He states this is not a game and he will accept this as a fight. Valdemar says thank you for a fight that is more interesting than one-sided slaughter. Andante says Valdemar is dragging them in too. Valdemar says since they have entertained him so much he should return the favor. He introduces himself as Valdemar and says it is a pleasure to meet them again. Sissana looks enraged as civilians are suspended in the air by black tendrils. A dark red energy emanates from the ground. Andante looks shocked and asks what this is. He wonders if this is hell as a black sun appears in the sky and civilians are caught in the red energy.